In life, the story is never truly over. The year 2002 was defined by the next step forward. After the tragedies and triumphs of 2001, the next season in NASCAR saw the rise of its new guard, between a set of first career wins, a first-time champion, and perhaps the greatest rookie duel in NASCAR history. The stories of legends began to be written in the backdrop of the Intimidator's legacy. In this timeline, Dale Earnhardt is still here, racing into his 50s while building a team primed for the future. Simultaneously, time marches on, and as new names begin to win, the story of the sport evolves. In 2001, we saw one of Dale's own mentees, Jeff Green, score a championship for the late bloomers, with a potential star in the making, Jimmy Johnson, scoring the Busch Series championship. The next generation of Richard Childress Racing has arrived, and at the same time, the next generation of teams have arrived with it. Dodge looks to grow, with a young Casey Elliott finally earning his first win for Evernham. Bill Davis Racing continues to steadily improve, as Jeff Gordon finally hopes to break into championship contention, and of course, the Earnhardt family legacy will continue, as Dale looks to build his own team. NASCAR is evolving in the 21st century, just as the world at large is. 2001 is a year that will be remembered, but the story of the sport never stops. What new names will be made in 2002? And will one of NASCAR's recent stars take the crown? Or will new champions, perhaps even unexpected ones, truly usher in the sport's next era? It's a new year with new stories waiting to be rewritten. NASCAR's new millennium moves forward into 2002, and as veterans and rookies alike look to climb to the top, the sport is more competitive than ever across the ladder. As always, we start things off again with the Kodak Grand Am Stock GT Series, where in 2001 we saw Scott Pruitt conquer the series and take home the championship for Team Sapco. Pruitt will return to Stock GT competition and is looking to go back-to-back. Moving on now to silly season, Chip Ganassi Racing expands its operation to a 4-car team, adding the number 01 U.S. Army Dodge for 24-year-old Casey Mears, nephew of Rick Mears. Mears is one of the 4 new rookies this season. There's also 21-year-old Paul Menard looking to make his way up the NASCAR ladder, as he's piloting a new second car for Team Menard. Brent Sherman joins Michael Kranofus' team, piloting the number 37 Serta Ford. And last of the rookies features Winston West driver Brandon Ash driving for his family team. Also, a new team debuting on the circuit is TRG, the Racers Group, fielding the number 66 Pontiac for Chris Neville. And for our part-timers this season, Andy Pilgrim and Elliott Forbes Robinson will once again be making select starts. And lastly, Dale Earnhardt will once again run a one-off at Daytona. The 2002 Stock GT schedule expands to 11 races with 2 new venues. Canada's Stock GT race moves to a new venue, as Montreal is replaced with Mosport in Ontario. Then in August, new to the schedule is the iconic Laguna Seca Raceway, another race out west. The season will once again begin in Daytona and end in Riverside. And now we take you to Daytona, where the 2002 season is officially underway as Scott Pruitt and Anthony Lazzaro lead the field to the green flag. It didn't take long for our defending champion to build himself a good lead, as Ron Fellows settled in the second. At the halfway point, Ron Fellows got around Scott Pruitt to take the lead, but Pruitt went to pit shortly after. As the battle for second started to heat up, Butch Letzinger spun out in the chicane. Then after that, Alfonso Ribeiro and Larry Gunselman got together coming out of the chicane. Then the saga finished up with Rick Ware spinning out in the chicane as well. Afterwards, Scott Pruitt and Ron Fellows duked it out, swapping the lead back and forth as the 2 Sapco drivers were putting on a show. With 3 to go, Larry Foyt spun out and Paul Menard ran into him. He tried to get it going, but Rick Ware then bumped into him, giving Menard heavy damage. The race would end under caution, and Scott Pruitt's title defense is off to a great start as he wins at Daytona. At the next race at Sebring, rookie Casey Mears and defending champion Scott Pruitt would lead the field to the green flag for the second race of the season at Sebring. And while Casey Mears had a great start, the uphill battle was on, as he had to go up against one of the best road racers of the current time. After pit stops and with 3 to go, it became a 3-car battle between Casey Mears, Scott Pruitt, and Sean Woodside. Mears had to switch to playing defense to protect his lead, and if he could hold off the defending champion, it would certainly put him on the map as a potential prospect in NASCAR. And that's exactly what he would do. Casey Mears, in just his second start, holds off Pruitt and Woodside to win at Sebring for his first career win. And the rise of Casey Mears continued on at Portland, as he would start on the pole with Scott Pruitt next to him once again. It was a rather calm race, and after pit stops cycled through with 10 laps to go, Darren Brassfield had the lead. But it was the rookie chasing him down, and Mears would eventually get around Brassfield. Scott Pruitt, meanwhile, did all he could to reel him in, but it was once again Casey Mears picking up the win in Portland. Then at Heartland Park, we had some new faces up front, with Scott Pruitt and Casey Mears both qualifying outside the top 8. Corvette Racing locked out the front row, with Olivier Beretta on pole and Boris Said alongside. This race was calm, but had a wild first lap as the teammates just about made contact going back and forth for the lead, with Boris Said ultimately taking the lead. And with that, the Corvette team cruised to a 1-2 finish, with Boris Said winning his first race of the season. Here we are at the first of 2 new venues for Stock GT this season, as Canada's date moves from Quebec to Ontario, and this race did not disappoint. The countryman Ron Fellows started on pole in this one, but had to immediately fight for the lead, with Mark Simo taking the lead in the first set of S's, clearing him before Fellows bumped back for the lead in the hairpin. Fellows took a stable lead for a while, but Simo wouldn't go away, and finally made the move at exactly the halfway point on the start-finish straight. After Simo gained his lead, pit stops began, with Fellows falling to 4th, and a new 3-car breakaway forming of Simo, Tony Ave, and Boris Said. Ave got the closest to him in the final 3 laps, including taking it side by side with a lap and a half to go, but Simo managed to defend it on the outside and got room to finish the job when Said tried to steal second away in the process. And the 2000 Series champ Mark Simo would go on to earn his first win of the season in Mosport's inaugural race. As we hit the halfway point on the season at Mid-Ohio, the breakout rookie Casey Mears started on the pole, but he surrendered the lead on the start to veteran Ron Fellows. What looked like it'd be a battle between those two later became a 3-driver battle when Darren Brassfield pulled off the rare move of jumping ahead by long pitting on an open pit road. Mears got back around Fellows once again, but didn't have the pace to get around Brassfield, and the Roush driver, Darren Brassfield, gets his first win of 2002. After Mid-Ohio, Boris Said had a 21-point lead over Casey Mears and a 28-point lead over Scott Pruitt, as the championship battle continues to heat up. As for the next race at Lime Rock, it was a dominating performance from PJ Jones. From start to finish, he would lead the entire way and go on to pick up the win. The early season rivalry between Pruitt and Mears was renewed at Watkins Glen, with the former starting on the pole, but Mears had a rough start and he would fall back to 6th. And with that, he would also finish outside the top 10. This race saw a lot of passing in the top 5 between guys like Jeff Davis, Boris Said, Darren Brassfield, and Christian Fittipaldi. However, the defending champion would lead wire to wire. and Scott Pruitt gets his second win of the season and establishes himself as the favorite amid a very competitive season. The second of our new tracks and our new date on the schedule looked like it had real upset potential, as rookie Paul Menard scored the pole and he was leading early. Menard had to hold off Jeff Davis early in this one, but pit strategy turned the race from a 2-car battle to a 4-car battle, with Mark Simo jumping both of them in the corkscrew as they fought for spots. But Simo was able to pull away, and the California native wins the inaugural race in Monterey. Paul Menard comes up short in second, but makes a statement with a great run, and in the most laps led in upper mid-pack equipment. He could be one to watch in the coming years. Out in the desert, Mark Simo looked to have a promising day as he would start from the pole, but going into turn 1 on the first lap, he was ran over by Boris Said, sending Simo around and collecting Menard, who started in 4th. Scott Pruitt would take over the lead, and he would go on to lead for a majority of the race. However, things started to get intense with 11 laps to go when Paul Gentilozzi went for a spin to bring out the caution. We then restarted with 7 to go, and perhaps thanks to the lap car of Mike Borkowski, Christian Fittipaldi gets past Pruitt to take the lead. Fittipaldi was looking for his first win in NASCAR. Then coming to 4 to go, the caution came out again as Mark Simo ran over Amy Ruman and they both went for a spin. This would set up for a quick late restart with 2 to go as Fittipaldi, Pruitt, and the lap car of Borkowski went 3 wide going into turn 1. But Pruitt couldn't keep it together and he would end up losing spots. Alfonso Ribeiro, meanwhile, would get around Pruitt for second, and with that, Christian Fittipaldi hangs on and wins for his first career Stock GT win. And this takes us to the season finale at Riverside, as Mark Simo started on the pole again, but he would lose the lead quick to Tony Ave and Ron Fellows. Fellows, however, would lead for most of the race, but never could break away from Scott Pruitt. With just 3 laps to go, Fellows and Pruitt were dueling for the lead, and while Fellows did all he could to hold off Pruitt, it was only inevitable, as Scott Pruitt took the lead and never looked back. He started 2002 in victory lane, and that's exactly how he will end it too, as Scott Pruitt took the checkered flag and would win his second championship at Riverside, as Scott Pruitt goes back-to-back in the Kodak Grand-Am Stock GT Series. Absolute domination from Scott Pruitt, but also very competitive, as we had quite the assortment of winners this season, including the rise of drivers like Casey Mears. As we take a look at the winners and the final standings from the 2002 Kodak Grand-Am Stock GT Series season. Another fantastic season by Scott Pruitt as he wins the championship by 108 points, and what a year by Casey Mears. I'm sure we're going to hear a lot more about him down the road. Next up is the 2002 NASCAR DuPont Super Sportsman Series, as we watch the rise of an unexpected star. Nathan Hosley came into last season unknown, but everybody knows him now, as he ended up becoming the 2001 champion. Hosley will be back in the series with Rick Hendrick this season, looking to build an impressive 2001 season. Moving on now to silly season, AK Racing expands to a 2-car operation as newcomer Johnny Sauter pilots the number 11 Motocraft Ford, looking to follow in Jay's footsteps. He will be teammates to the number 7 of Scott Wimmer. New to the Super Sportsman Series is Rusty Wallace Incorporated, expanding beyond their Truck Series team. The team will field the number 64 Wells Fargo Ford for Angie Wilson. Tina Gordon will go full-time this season, piloting the number 66 Dodge for Welliver Jessel Racing. And lastly, for the full-timers, Bill Elliott's team picks up Jason Rudd for a full-time run in the number 94. Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s late model team, Junior Motorsports, will also enter a part-time car in the series, with Amber Cope getting some seat time, as well as 23-year-old TJ Majors. Larry Foyt moves over to AJ Foyt's team on a part-time basis, And lastly, Nemco Motorsports runs a part-time car for David Rudiman. As for the schedule, the Nashville Fairgrounds moves up towards the early portion of the season, while Minnesota moves over from the Super Truck Series schedule. Nashville takes Bristol's spot on the schedule. We return to Disney World for the opening race of the 2002 season as teammates Scott Wimmer and Johnny Sauter lead the field of the green flag, looking to make some magic happen. The race was rather calm as Wimmer led for the first half. However, past halfway, Johnny Sauter chased down Scott Wimmer after dealing with all kinds of lap traffic. Sauter made the move on the outside to eventually take the lead before green flag pit stops. And despite the pit stops, Johnny Sauter would not look back, and in his debut race, he would win the season opener at Walt Disney World. Perhaps another prospect to keep our eyes on. Scott Wimmer scored the pole again for the next race at Rockingham, and Angie Wilson was next to him. Wimmer led the first few laps as the defending champion Hosley jumped to second. But on lap 4, the caution would come out when Billy Venturini went up into Kirk Shelmerdine, sending them both across the infield grass with Shelmerdine spinning. The field would pit early as Wimmer kept the lead at the restart with Hosley in second. On lap 23, Wimmer was challenged by Ron Barfield as Barfield would take the lead. Then on lap 37, Nathan Hosley attempted to throw a block on Johnny Sauter, but it goes wrong fast as Hosley gets turned into the wall in turn 1 to bring out the caution. Barfield remained the leader at the restart on lap 42 with Wimmer second and Angie Wilson in third. Then on lap 48, Scott Wimmer would take the lead back from Barfield, and with 28 to go after pit stops, it was a new leader out in front, that being Billy Venturini of Joe Gibbs Racing. Despite his early run-in with Kirk Shelmerdine, it was all Venturini leading, and in the closing laps, Travis Quaffle did everything he could to chase the 17 down, and maybe with a couple more laps, he would have gotten it. But it was Billy Venturini taking home the win at Rockingham. We had an interesting race in Nashville with the champ Hosley on pole, but we had a few other leaders thanks to a lot of passing on pit road. Johnny Sauter and Jason Schuler had laps in the lead, but an unexpected driver would steal the show late. That would be David Rudiman. In just his second start, in the second part-time Nemco car, Rudiman leapfrogged to the lead on pit road while running inside the top 10, and had to hold off a closing Billy Venturini for the lead. Venturini closed in on him in the last 25 laps, and by the last 15 he was on his bumper, but he couldn't move him. Venturini tried to get low with 3 to go, but was not able to. Then on the final lap, we had a bump and run attempt. Venturini took to the bumper of Rudiman in turn 3, and welcome to victory lane, David Rudiman. He may be 32, but do we have a potential late bloomer on our hands? Kirk Shelmerdine led the field to the green flag at Atlanta, and it was a wild race with many lead changes. 9 laps in, Billy Venturini took the lead, but then by lap 20, it was Jason Jarrett taking the lead. Green flag pit stops took place halfway through as Hermie Sadler went into Kirk Shelmerdine, and they both go up the track, and Mario Goslin runs into Sadler, and a few cars got collected in the aftermath. Jason Jarrett led the field back to the green flag and led for a bit until Amber Cope took the lead for Junior Motorsports. Then with 30 to go, Scott Wimmer took the lead, and he would eventually then lose the lead to Mike Dillon. Then Nathan Hosley would take the lead after pit stops in what has been an exciting race, but eventually Mike Dillon would take the lead back with 13 laps to go, and he would drive away for his first win of the season at Atlanta. Nathan Hosley started on pole at Louisiana and rocketed out to a big lead over Travis Quaffle, but things got interesting after a yellow during pit stops for Curtis Markham, and that changed the running order a lot. Jason Rudd took over the lead and battled Billy Venturini through traffic before Venturini faded alongside the others. the younger Rudd mastered lap traffic and pulled ahead quickly. And Jason Rudd, the nephew of Ricky Rudd, picks up his first career win in the Super Sportsman Series. That's 3 first career wins in 5 races, as we're set for a very competitive season. We had a very competitive race at Wisconsin, with Travis Kvapil starting on the pole in the 3. Kvapil pulled ahead for an early lead, but was slowly chased down by Johnny Sauter and Jason Jarrett, the former of whom took the lead in lap traffic. Pit strategy messed up Kvapil and Sauter's day when Robert Huffman spun early in the pit cycle, ironically off Mike Dillon, bringing out a yellow. Jason Schuler took over the lead with Jason Rudd and Mike Dillon behind, and Schuler had a great restart and took the lead early, but Jason Rudd had a better long-run car and took the lead with 20 laps to go, while Schuler and Dillon battled behind. It looked like Rudd was set to take home his second win, but that was until he ran out of fuel with 5 laps to go. Rudd had to pit, and no one else had to. He was all alone and fell to 13th, while behind him, Jason Schuler took the lead back, and he would hold Mike Dillon off for his second career win and his first of 2002. We head next to Lowe's Motor Speedway for the 10th race of the season, as ARCA star Frank Kimmel won the pole, with Jason Jarrett starting in second. Kimmel led for a few laps early on, but then Billy Venturini would take the lead and pretty much led for a majority of the race. Close to 40 laps to go, we had a big wreck during green flag pit stops as Rene Dupuis and Curtis Markham got together, going up the track and into Travis Kvapil. Then Shane Hall ran into them, who would then get drilled by Mike Dillon and Lyndon Amick. Barfield, Gerhardt, Tina Gordon, and Rich Bickle were involved as well. Venturini led after the restart, but then with 30 to go, Jason Jarrett would then take the lead. Things were looking good for Jarrett until 6 laps to go when Johnny Sauter chased him down and took the lead from Jarrett, and Johnny Sauter earns his second win of the season at Lowe's Motor Speedway. Hermie Sadler led the field to the green flag in the next race at South Boston, with Nathan Hosley next to him. Sadler took control and led for the first 20 laps of the race. Then Nathan Hosley took the lead and led the way until lap 56, when he ran into the broken 59 car of Bobby Gerhardt. Hosley did have some damage, but was able to keep going. This, however, would bring out the caution. Billy Venturini then took over the lead for the restart, and shortly after, he would lose the lead to Ron Barfield. Barfield dominated and was on his way to his second win of the season until around 15 laps to go, when he lost the lead to both Jason Schuler and Hermie Sadler, with Sadler taking the lead. And he would not look back. Hermie Sadler becomes the 9th different winner so far in 2002, picking up the win at South Boston. At the Paperclip in Martinsville, Billy Venturini led the field to the start alongside Johnny Sauter. Thanks to an early caution, everyone decided to pit, leading to Nathan Hosley taking over the lead. But not too long after the caution, Ashton Lewis was moved by the 7 of Scott Wimmer to bring out another caution. And despite the usual Martinsville mayhem, it was Nathan Hosley, the defending champion, holding the lead all race long as he cruises to his second win of the season. Hermie Sadler finished in second, Angie Wilson finished third, and a 5th place finish for Takuma Koga. In the next race, we head north of the border as Robert Huffman puts Toyota in pole position with Kirk Shelmerdine in second. Huffman was holding off Shelmerdine early on, but 16 laps in, Shelmerdine finally got around Huffman for the lead. With that, Shelmerdine would dominate for most of the race, and it was a relatively calm one. After green flag pit stops with under 30 to go, Shelmerdine ended up having a longer pit stop when the 7 of Scott Wimmer ran into the back of him. And this would end up giving the lead to the 51 of Nathan Hosley. Robert Huffman found his way back to second, but there was no stopping the 51, as Nathan Hosley goes back-to-back to win in Canada. Billy Venturini has looked strong so far, holding a 66-point lead over Nathan Hosley and a 176-point lead over Mike Dillon. Johnny Sauter and Jason Jarrett are also in the top 5. At Myrtle Beach, Mike Dillon was on pole, and a pair of underdogs behind in part-timer Martin Truex Jr. in 3rd and Frank Kimmel in 5th. Mike Dillon led early before surrendering it to Scott Wimmer, but it was the middle of the race where things got wild. A spin for Travis Kvapil changed the running order, placing Kevin Grubb in the lead, followed by Kirk Shelmerdine and Ron Barfield, who both got around Grubb, but got stuck between lappers, going 4 wide with them before Barfield spun off Shelmerdine's bumper from the lead. As the lineup fixed itself, Shelmerdine led Jason Schuler and part-timer David Runeman looking to strike again. In the final 25 laps, David Runeman took 2nd and Kirk Shelmerdine pit early before another yellow for Travis Kvapil wrecking and taking out Nathan Hosley in the process, giving David Runeman the lead once again, which he would hold on in the final 7-lap sprint. Do you believe it? David Runeman wins once again, and he looks to be a late-blooming star if, or rather when, he goes full-time next year. At IRP, we had another Toyota pole as Robert Huffman starts in 1st, but he fell off on the start to Jason Rudd. We had a lot of Jasons up front in this one, as Jarrett, Rudd, and Jason Schuler all ran near the front, with Rudd pulling ahead with the lead just past halfway. While it was a calm race, we had a thrilling battle late, as the field needed to pit with 11 to go. Rudd and Jarrett came in the same lap with Rudd in front, but they came out side by side with Jason Jarrett making the jump. Rudd stayed on his bumper in the final laps and looked for room, but couldn't make any of them work, and Jason Jarrett gets his first win of the season in a very exciting battle for the win. Over the course of the next few races, Nathan Hosley has since had a slip-up, and he needs a major comeback run for the title. It got off to a good start with him on pole at North Wilkesboro, but then major championship implications just 4 laps in as Billy Venturini crashes out of the race. He lost it after making contact with Tina Gordon and slams the inside wall, and he gets a few others involved. This race saw plenty of cautions with many incidents starting in turn 4. Mike Cope, Rene Dupuis, and Ron Barfield are among the culprits, the latter of which triggered a big mid-pack stack-up that Takuma Koga avoided miraculously. Up front, it was a 3-car battle of Hosley, Kvapil, and once again David Runeman. How impressive from Runeman. And thankfully for the defending champ, lap cars Ashton Lewis and Lyndon Amick helped block Kvapil. Nathan Hosley rebounds for his 4th win of the year at a time where he needs it the most. And things would get even more interesting at the very next race over in Hickory. Johnny Sauter scored the pole with Hermie Sadler in 2nd for this one, as Sauter built an early lead. 20 laps in, however, new points leader Jason Jarrett takes the lead from Sauter. Jarrett at one point got out to a 7-second lead, even lapping the likes of Billy Venturini and Nathan Hosley. But then on lap 74, Jarrett's teammate Kirk Shelmerdine blows an engine, ending his day. At first, Jarrett had a comfortable lead, with the lead pack on the tail end of the lead lap. But then another caution came out when TJ Majors spun Rene Dupuis, with Bigley and Goslin scraping the wall just to avoid it. Jarrett got a good restart as he was able to put a couple of lap cars between him and Dillon. But that got erased fast when Tina Gordon slid up into Billy Venturini. Venturini's championship woes continue. With less than 25 to go, Jarrett didn't get as good of a restart, causing Johnny Sauter to chase him down and take the lead. Jarrett tried to fight back but would end up finishing 5th, as Johnny Sauter picks up his 3rd win of the season at Hickory. Rudd was 4th, Jarrett was 5th, Takuma Koga got a great run in 6th, and Mike Dillon was 8th. The championship fight only continues to get intense. Jason Jarrett holds a 63-point lead over Mike Dillon and a 92-point lead over Jason Rudd. Mike Dillon scored the pole for the race at Indiana, and he kept it that way, leading all race long. At one point, Jason Rudd did take the lead for a few laps, giving 5 bonus points, but then Dillon took it right back. Halfway through, the caution came out when Hermie Sadler spun the 92 of Rich Bickle. Mike Dillon would go on to pick up a crucial win, helping him in the standings. Venturini finished 3rd, Rudd in 4th, and Jarrett 8th. Jason Jarrett now only has a 10-point lead over Mike Dillon with just 2 races to go. We return to Memphis for a thriller as Frank Kimmel and Hermie Sadler led the field to the green flag. The ARCA champ led for the first 5 laps, then lost the lead to Johnny Sauter. As that was going on, Mike Dillon and Billy Venturini worked their way forwards, while Jason Jarrett was going backwards. 12 laps in, and we had our first caution when Bill Bigley spun right in front of last year's Memphis winner Kevin Grubb, and they both wrecked in turn 4. Both drivers had minimal damage and would keep going. A handful of drivers went to pit under yellow, including Jarrett, Hosley, Quappel, Kimmel, and Sadler. Sauter continued to lead after the restart and dominated with Mike Dillon in 2nd. Meanwhile, Jason Jarrett was way in the back. The group of drivers that pit under the caution would end up being in front after green flag stops, but would pit under 30 to go. By 24 to go, Kirk Shelmerdine led the way, but Johnny Sauter was right behind him. With 19 to go, Frank Kimmel ran into the back of Angie Wilson going into turn 3, sending them both into the wall to bring out a late caution. Then, right after the restart, Johnny Sauter easily worked his way past Shelmerdine for the lead, and he would go on to collect his 4th win of the season, and what an impressive rookie season by Johnny Sauter. But that wasn't the only story here. While Mike Dillon finished 9th, Jason Jarrett's car came to life when it needed to. In the last 12 laps, Jarrett went from 26th to 11th to save his championship hopes. And thanks to that run by Jarrett, he did lose the points lead, but now he's only 3 points behind Mike Dillon heading into the final race of the season. It could not get any closer than this. Before we determine a champion, we have to decide the 8 drivers who will join the top 18 in standings, as David Rudiman scored the pole and he put that 88 in cruise control all race long as he would go on to win the B main. Mario Goslin was 2nd, Andy Houston was 3rd, Frank Kimmel was 4th, Martin Truex Jr. was 5th, Amber Cope was 6th, Curtis Markham 7th, and last of the top 8 to advance was Bill Bigley. After winning the B main, David Rudiman looked to cap off 2002 with another win, as he scored the pole with Mike Dillon next to him. Billy Venturini would start 4th, and Jason Jarrett would start 6th. However, just 3 laps in, Andy Houston got into his teammate Robert Huffman to bring out the caution. Then on lap 9, Angie Wilson turned Hermie Sadler to bring out another caution. After a while, Billy Venturini chased down David Rudiman, and he would eventually take the lead. Venturini is not out of this title fight just yet, but Jarrett and Dillon would need to lose some spots in order to help him. The last third of the race was when the action began to heat up between 3rd and 6th place, as Jason Jarrett was passed by Jason Rudd for 5th, but would get that position back not too long after. Jarrett was given it all he had to try and find a way past Mike Dillon. Then Mike Dillon went 3 wide on Rich Bickle and the lap car Mario Goslin. Dillon would get past them, but on the very next lap, Jason Jarrett went 3 wide on Dillon and Bickle. Jarrett didn't make it work, but he was not backing down. With under 20 to go, Dillon was 4th and Jarrett was 5th. It wasn't easy for Jarrett as he was pressured by Jason Rudd after going too hard into turn 1. Rudd tried to clear him, but Jarrett fought back. Dillon, meanwhile, got past Rich Bickle for 3rd. Then Jason Jarrett worked his way past Bickle and immediately went for Dillon. The two were side by side with 15 laps to go as Jarrett went to 3rd and Rich Bickle got around Mike Dillon. This put Jason Jarrett in the driver's seat for the title, but it wasn't over. Bickle tried to get back around Jarrett coming at 10 to go, but had no luck, especially with Mario Gosselin still ahead of all of them. Coming to 6 ago, Bickle got around Jarrett, then Jason Rudd got to him, but Jarrett held off Rudd. Then Jason Jarrett dive-bombed Rich Bickle and took third back, coming to 4 to go. Coming to the white flag and into turn 1, Jarrett ran high again, allowing Bickle to get to his inside. They ran neck and neck all the way to the checkers, and while Billy Venturini would take home the win, Jason Jarrett barely beat Bickle at the line for third in a photo finish, and it further helped secure him the NASCAR DuPont Super Sportsman Series Championship for 2002. Jason Jarrett, Dale Jarrett's son, gets it done for Dodge and Jarrett Favre, both of which are now able to celebrate their first NASCAR championship together. Definitely a huge moment, especially for NFL quarterback Brett Favre, as we take a look at the winners and the final standings from the 2002 NASCAR DuPont Super Sportsman Series season. Definitely a lot to talk about from this season, and definitely a lot of memories were made. Johnny Sauter, while the standings result doesn't show it for him, the fact that he picked up 4 wins is very impressive, and I'm sure he's going to be a threat for the title next year. And Jason Jarrett definitely had a year he will never forget, perhaps enough now that could send him to the next level of NASCAR. Next up is the 2002 NASCAR Craftsman Super Truck Series season, where we saw Stacey Compton take home the championship in dramatic fashion at Las Vegas back in 2001. Tim Richmond has lost out on the title for 2 years straight. Can 2002 be the year for Tim? The 2002 Super Truck season will be 25 races with 2 new events. Homestead Miami joins the slate with a points race in the spring, which we'll touch more on later. The other new venue to the series is a new entry to our trio of dirt races. Following the conclusion of the Dirt Race Series at Bristol, the Truck Series will be heading to Volusia Speedway Park in eastern Florida. This race will be part of the July Daytona Road Course weekend, just a half hour from the World Center of Racing. This will also be NASCAR's return to the track for the first time since the 1992 Busch Series, before the bullring was turned into a dirt track in 1997. The most notable story of Truck Series' silly season was brought on by Hendrick Motorsports. As Hendrick continues their rough patch in the Winston Cup, Hendrick closes down their Super Trucks operation. Hendrick will continue to work with his former driver, Tim Richmond, driving for himself at Hollywood Motorsports, as well as young Kyle Busch in their part-time truck. Scott Lagasse retires from full-time racing, while Jack Sprague finds himself in a new opportunity, taking over the number 29 Dodge Ram team. He brings Net Zero along as a primary sponsor. The 29's previous driver, Kurt Busch, will be moving up to the Busch Series this season. Another driver making the move up is Greg Biffle, leaving an opening in Roush's number 50 truck. They take a chance on a young driver who's had mixed results with small teams the past 2 seasons, but shows potential, Jamie McMurray. This truck also gets new sponsorship with the U.S. Navy. As for his teammate, Tony Roper, he picks up new sponsorship this season with the Outdoor Channel, still piloting the number 99 truck. Another notable story is that of Jeff Bodine. At 53 years old, the inaugural series champion decides to take a step back into a part-time schedule after regressing the past 2 seasons. The number 70 truck will run the full schedule with Bodine racing the slight majority, but splitting the truck with him is a young Midwestern dirt racer, Carl Edwards. The 22-year-old Missouri native has something to prove this year. Other full-time moves include Bobby Hamilton Jr. joining his father's team, replacing Mark Gibson in the number 4. Gibson moves to replace McMurray in the Morgan $64 team. Carlos Contreras moves to Ware Racing Enterprises. Mike Bliss moves to Troxel Racing's number 93. And lastly, Express Motorsports brings their truck full-time once again, with David Starr piloting the number 61. As for part-time trucks, Bill Davis's number 1 truck returns. Ryan Newman will run additional races over last season, and also splitting the truck with him is young Angela Cope, who moves from the Super Sportsman Series to the Super Truck Series. Rusty Wallace Incorporated's number 6 truck has an expanded schedule. Rusty himself will once again enter the season opener at Daytona, plus his home track at Gateway. But he brings in another veteran to run a few races. Out of retirement, Darrell Waltrip will run 4 truck races in the number 6, running the 3 dirt races as well as the Memphis race in the fall. Lastly, Reagan Smith will share the part-time MB Motorsports truck with Frog Hall, and the new FDNY racing team opens, split between Conrad Burr, Steve Portega, and Emerson Newton-John, the nephew of Olivia Newton-John. Tony Roper and defending champion Stacy Compton led the field to the green flag to open up the 2002 season. Coming back to lap 2, Roper, Waltrip, and Jack Sprague about went 3 wide for the lead as Roper grabbed the first set of bonus points to the season, hoping to begin his quest towards a second championship. This race featured one of the most exciting truck races at Daytona to ever take place, featuring 36 lead changes among 19 different drivers. There were also no cautions with a round of green flag pit stops. Coming to 2 to go, Willie T. Ribbs was leading the way with Dennis Setzer and Coy Gibbs right behind him, and going into turn 1, Scott Bloomquist went 3 wide for second. Could the dirt legend become a winner at the World Center of Racing? Then going into turn 3, Bloomquist zooms past Ribbs for the lead with a push from Morgan Shepherd and Stacy Compton. On the final lap, Compton and Ribbs teamed up going into turn 1, and Scott Bloomquist was doing all he could to hold on to the lead. But Stacy Compton made the same exact move that Bloomquist made the lap prior and takes the lead. Coming off turn 4, Willie T. Ribbs dives to the inside, and it was a drag race to the finish line, but it was defending champion Stacy Compton, winning at Daytona by just 5 1/1000ths of a second over Willie T. Ribbs. What an insane finish to start off the 2002 Super Truck Series season. We head out west for the second race of the season as we duel in the desert. Jack Sprague was on the pole with Tony Roper in second, as Roper would grab an early lead with Tim Richmond jumping up to second. Tony Roper had the truck to beat, leading all throughout the first half of the race, and then he went to pit coming to lap 44. But right as he finished his stop and drove off, Derek Cope ran into the 63 of Ted Musgrave, sending them both into the wall in turn 3. Roper remained the leader at the restart with Scott Bloomquist second and Stacy Compton in third. Right after that restart, things got chaotic when the leaders went 4 wide as Kyle Busch was sandwiched between Waltrip and Richmond, who was running in fourth and ended up wrecking, leading to a multi-car pileup on the backstretch involving Richmond, Waltrip, Barry Bodine, Brendan Gong, and Willie T. Ribbs, who ran into the side of Scott Bloomquist, causing the 94 to flip over once. And then Bobby Dotter crashed into Ribbs as well. Roper continued to lead after the cleanup, but was under pressure from a red-hot Stacy Compton. Compton once peeked into the inside, but wasn't able to get a run. With 17 to go, it was a 3-truck battle between Tony Roper, Stacy Compton, and Michael Waltrip. But in turns 3 and 4, Waltrip drove way too deep into the back of the Daytona winner, causing Compton to go for a slide coming off turn 4 into the wall and right into 4th place Jack Sprague. Sprague had heavy damage and his day was done. Oddly enough for Compton, he would go on to finish 8th in this race, despite what had just happened. In the closing laps, Waltrip tried to chase down the 1999 champion, but came up short as Tony Roper picks up a big early win at Phoenix. We head out to wine country where Sears Point now has a new name, Infineon Raceway. This race saw a pretty chaotic start with Barry Bodine on the pole, battling Daytona winner Stacy Compton and the veteran Tim Richmond, with Richmond ultimately pulling away in the short chute thanks to a superior line. Richmond would pull away, but lose much of his lead after taking a long pit strategy, allowing Cindy Peterson and Michael Waltrip to pull into a better position. Either one of them could have caught Richmond in the right circumstance, but because they battled each other so much, neither had a chance to get to the 46's bumper. And with that, Tim Richmond goes on to win at Infineon. Atlanta is always a thriller. This one came with early championship implications. Michael Waltrip started on pole but surrendered the lead early to Ronnie Hornaday. But on lap 15, we had trouble up front as Stacy Compton got spun off the bumper of Ryan Newman, hitting the wall head-on and collecting Scott Riggs, and then a few others in the back like Carlos Contreras and Tim Woods. The rest of the race ran green with a wild assortment of leaders, including Hornaday, Irvin, Musgrave, John Wood, and Jamie McMurray. In the longer term, though, Ted Musgrave and Tony Roper were the two best trucks. Bloomquist also got up there, as he's had a hot start to the season, and it looked like until late stops that those three would battle for the win. The truck whacker Ernie Irvan jumped ahead of all of them on pit road with a splash and go. But he wasn't the winner either. One driver stood alone as the only driver to not need a second pit stop and won it on fumes, that being Dennis Setzer in the Petty 43. Setzer gets his second career win, and just as at Talladega last year, he earns a key strategy win. Could he keep the momentum going and surprise this season? A couple of races later, we followed that up with a fantastic race in College Station, Texas. As Ernie Irvan started on the pole, he looked like he was going to be hard to beat. But 9 laps in, Michael Waltrip took the lead from Ernie Irvan, but Irvan took the lead back just a few laps later. Nearing the halfway point, it was 3 wide for the lead between Irvan, Ronnie Hornaday, and Waltrip. But even then, Irvan continued to hang on. Then a lap later, green flag pit stops began. After everything cycled through, Jack Sprague and Cindy Peterson end up in front of Irvan. Peterson then took the lead from Sprague. With 21 to go, Jack Sprague battled Ernie Irvan for second, and Brendan Gaughan took a peek as Sprague took second for a moment. Then, back came Irvan. Sprague kept battling with Irvan side by side, which only would benefit Cindy Peterson. With 13 to go, it was 3 wide for the lead between Irvan, Sprague, and Peterson. Irvan once again continued to hang on, and he made it clear it was going to be tough to beat him. But with 6 to go, Cindy Peterson took the lead from Irvan, but then another concern appeared for our leaders: fuel. With 5 to go, Ernie Irvan went to pit. Waltrip and a few others pit with 4 to go. Then Peterson had to pit with 3 to go. Taking the lead was the 63 of Ted Musgrave for Rusty Wallace Incorporated. And Musgrave had just enough to hang on, and it was a long time coming. Ted Musgrave wins at Texas World with Tim Richmond, Coy Gibbs, and Terry Cook all staying out. What a race, and what a moment for Ted Musgrave. After 7 races, Tim Richmond also took the points lead from Cindy Peterson. Jack Sprague in his new ride was looking to get hot, and he did so out in the Midwest, winning on the dirt at Knoxville, and then on the winding roads of Topeka at Heartland Park. These 2 wins certainly put Sprague in talks for the Super Truck title. We then had an exciting one out in the Rockies at Pikes Peak, as Stacy Compton won the pole, but Jack Sprague and Barry Bodine were the best of the field, with Bodine leading off of the last pit stops. That said, we had a wild run to the finish, as the top 5 bunched up, with Waltrip and Bloomquist joining those 3, with Waltrip making a pass, and after running multiple laps besides Barry Bodine, followed by Compton and Bodine getting stuck side by side and letting him get away. Michael Waltrip wins at Pikes Peak after only leading the last few laps. But sometimes, that's all you need. 12 races in, and Tim Richmond holds a 39-point lead over Cindy Peterson. Will this be the year Richmond finally gets it done? Jack Sprague is back by 45 points, Michael Waltrip's back by 65, and Tony Roper is back by 102. We return to Nashville Super Speedway for the second time for the Super Truck Series, as Ronnie Hornaday scored the pole, as he and Stacy Compton led the field to the green flag. Hornaday tried to get an early lead, but just 3 laps in, Ernie Irvan took control of the lead. Early on in the race, it was a battle amongst Irvin Simo teammates, Ernie Irvan and Stacy Compton. After the first round of pit stops around lap 37, Stacy Compton had a decent lead on Ernie Irvan, but that lead would disappear over the next 10 laps as Ernie Irvan chased him down and took back the lead. The final round of green flag pit stops took place around lap 68, and afterwards it was Tony Roper out in front. It wasn't easy for the 1999 champion, as he had Ernie Irvan, a 1999 Cup champion, all over him until the end. With 2 laps to go, Irvan went to the inside of Roper in the turns 3 and 4, but Roper did a fantastic job holding his line on the outside, and the 99 truck hangs on. With that, Tony Roper wins himself a guitar in the Music City. We head next to the new dirt venue on the Super Truck schedule, as Scott Bloomquist was on pole. We had an extremely competitive race, with lots of passing up front, including leaders like Bloomquist, Peterson, Barry Bodine, and nearly Dennis Setzer having a great run. With that said, we had a caution in the late stages around pit stops that changed the running order a bit, setting up a battle between Ted Musgrave, Barry Bodine, and Tony Roper, with the 07 pulling ahead. And Barry Bodine wins on the dirt and gets his first win of the year after going winless in 2001. At SoCal, Ted Musgrave was on pole, defending the lead early from Tim Richmond, but 2 younger drivers were quick risers through the field, Jamie McMurray and Ryan Newman, both climbing into the top 3, riding the high line. McMurray and Musgrave came down pit road together, with McMurray getting a slight jump and making the pass. Newman later made his way around Musgrave for second, as Waltrip and Peterson joined the party, followed up by a caution before final pit stops. After everyone came off together, McMurray held the lead, but Peterson had taken second. In the final run to the finish, we had a thrilling moment as Peterson looked for the inside, but Musgrave practically bump drafted McMurray ahead to make it a battle between just the 2 of them. In the closing laps, Musgrave tried to make a move on the inside, but never had enough of a run, and even as they were side by side at the white, he could not finish the move, and the 50 pulls away. We have a first career win alert as young Jamie McMurray scores his first victory in San Diego, and he had to hold off many of the series veterans to do it. Are you ready for one of those classic Michigan finishes? Well, you're about to get one. This race at Michigan was packed with plenty of action, a race that featured 30 lead changes among 19 different drivers, and after the final round of pit stops with 10 to go, this sets us up with 7 to go, as Jack Sprague and Tony Roper were duking it out for the lead. Coy Gibbs attempted to join the front pack as he exited pit road, but was not successful. With 6 to go, Dennis Setzer peeked to the inside of Tony Roper, hoping to grab his second win of the season as he gets past Roper for the lead with help from Derek Cope. Then with 5 to go, Derek Cope led with John Wood and Bobby Daughter right behind him. John Wood would then take the lead, looking for a much-needed win, but then Cope battled back on the inside and took the lead back. With 3 to go, Cope was hanging on, but then Bobby Daughter worked his way past him to pull off a major upset. But coming to 2 to go, Ronnie Hornaday had the chance and took it, gunning for his first career win, and he takes the lead. But here came Willie T. Ribbs trying to make up for the heartbreaking defeat at Daytona, and then on the final lap, here comes Morgan Shepherd, the 1990 Daytona 500 champion. Ribbs was on the outside, Shepherd was on the inside. They didn't give a single inch. Ribbs did everything he could. Shepherd trying to prove he still has it. Side by side to the line. 60-year-old Morgan Shepherd wins at Michigan. A massive upset. Morgan Shepherd driving for his own team with a small budget, and not only that, this officially marked the closest finish in NASCAR history, as Morgan Shepherd beat Willie T. Ribbs by just 1/1000th of a second. We truly indeed got one of those classic Michigan finishes. couple of races later at Talladega, Coy Gibbs scored the pole and pulled ahead early until pit stops set up a unique theme for this one. A battle of some of the best drivers without a win this season, with Coy Gibbs and Eric Norris up front after first pit stops. While these leaders managed lap traffic, everything changed on pit road during second pit stops. Norris and Ribs stayed out as Gibbs led the way, but had a longer stop, leading to McMurray and Barry Bodine catching him, and going 3 wide on the apron, with another 2 in Hornaday and Bloomquist behind. But as they came off, Hornaday gets spun by Bloomquist up the track, and he gets slammed by Terry Cook, taking both out of the race and bringing out the caution. Norris, Ribs, and Compton were the ones to benefit from the change in the order, and Eric Norris pulled away from the restart onward to get his 3rd career win and his first of the 2002 season, one where he got to win in front of his father, Chuck Norris. Charlotte sometimes loves to be chaotic in the Truck Series, and this one had its start from qualifying with a big upset pole winner, Bobby Hamilton Jr., though he didn't do much besides lead the first 2 laps. From there, it was a heavyweight battle with Ernie Irvan leading for a bit, followed by a 2-truck breakaway of Roper and Richmond, 2 yellow trucks exchanging the lead back and forth while needing to conserve fuel to reach the finish. This led to a wild final run as the rest of the leaders caught those 2 in the final laps. Compton, Hornaday, Peterson, and Irvan all created a pack that pushed each other around, with Richmond getting pushed up the track a bit, and Ernie Irvan taking second. At the white flag, Ernie Irvan was being pushed a bit by Ernie Irvan, and coming back around, he got to the inside of Roper, but just didn't have the momentum to beat him to the line as Tony Roper gets his 4th win of the season in a thriller. Roper holds a 97-point lead over Michael Waltrip after this race. 3 races to go in the season, and Waltrip had a great opportunity to make up ground, starting on pole, while Tony Roper qualified all the way back in the 20s. While Waltrip led early, he had to fight Scott Bloomquist and the part-timer Ryan Newman, whom he held off, while the Cup star Rusty Wallace battled in the top 10 in his own truck, but he didn't quite have the pace of last year. We had a caution for Coy Gibbs that caused stops to come under yellow. We had a rare split strategy, with Jack Sprague, Willie T. Ribs, and Scott Riggs gambling on no tires, relegating Waltrip and Newman to 4th and 5th. That strategy was a disaster though, as Waltrip pulled ahead and took the lead a lap after the restart, with Ryan Newman behind, leading to all 3 who stayed out making an extra stop. This likely ends the outside chance Jack Sprague had at the title. The 3 best trucks all day would pull away, but Bloomquist had the fastest truck on the long run, finally getting the Waltrips inside with 7 to go and making the pass. The former dirt ace turned solid truck driver gets his 2nd career win at Gateway. As for the title fight, Tony Roper slowly climbed to 13th to salvage some valuable points. But Waltrip's 2nd place with the most laps led put him right back in the mix. After winning last week, Bloomquist kept the momentum going by winning the pole. He battled Jack Sprague early, but the real story lies in Cindy Peterson, who had an absolute rocket, starting in the teens, but made it to the lead and ran away with it. Where things really got interesting, though, was the top 2 in points. Waltrip and Roper both worked their way into the top 5, while Waltrip pitted a touch late to lead a lap and get points that could matter in the end. And with 2 laps to go, Waltrip, looking for points badly, charged up to 2nd and took it from Sprague. Ahead of him by multiple seconds, though, it's Memphis redemption for Cindy Peterson, finally earning her 1st win of the year. But is it too late for the title? Going into Las Vegas, Tony Roper holds a 21-point lead over Michael Waltrip and a 155-point lead over Cindy Peterson. It is time to crown a champion in the Sin City once again, as Tony Roper scored the pole with Dennis Setzer in 2nd. Peterson qualified 3rd, while Michael Waltrip qualified 13th. Roper led the way early on, but on lap 5, Sidney Peterson took the lead. The leaders went to pit on lap 26, and Peterson held a comfortable lead with about 30 laps to go. But as the laps tick away, Tony Roper would eventually chase down Peterson, and he would take the lead from her with under 20 laps to go. On lap 54, the leaders came down one more time for pit stops, and while Peterson did all she could, Roper just had the better truck. With 8 laps to go, the caution came out when Jeff Bodine ran into Angela Cope, and they wrecked going into turn 3. We would restart with 4 laps to go, and Tony Roper would drive away for his 5th win of the season, and that would lock up his 2nd NASCAR Craftsman Super Truck Series championship. Tony Roper is the champion for 2002. Tony Roper has made quite the career for himself for Jack Roush down in the Super Truck Series, scoring his first title in 1999, and just a handful of years later, already scoring a 2nd title. Maybe perhaps Roper has more in him to win potentially a 3rd next season. And with that, here are all the winners and the final standings from the 2002 NASCAR Craftsman Super Truck Series season. We've seen quite a handful of winners this season, especially that upset win at Michigan by Morgan Shepherd, where we got the closest finish in NASCAR history. We've also had notable winners such as Eric Norris and Jamie McMurray. Perhaps McMurray will climb his way through the ranks next season and improve on this season. Tim Richmond finishes 5th in the points. Still a solid season despite the fact that he was not near championship form like he was the past couple of seasons. Scott Bloomquist looking solid, finishing 11th in points. And of course, Dennis Setzer picking up another win as well early in the season. We'll take a look at the rest of our standings. Of course, Jeff Bodine running on a part-time basis, and Carl Edwards looked pretty solid in his truck starts, and I'm sure we'll hear more of him in the future. Next up is our annual running of the International Race of Champions, as we witness Rusty Wallace scoring his 4th IROC championship in 6 years in 2001. For 2002, the IROC schedule is getting a refresh with 2 new dates. The series remains truly international with another racetrack across the Pacific, but replacing Calder Park in Australia is Twin Ring Motegi in Japan. We'll touch more on this shortly, but the 2 tracks will be swapping their marquee events after a few successful years. Motegi will be hosting IROC, while Calder Park will be hosting the NASCAR Busch Series. The other change comes in IROC's 3rd race, with Michigan being swapped out for one of the country's newest venues, Chicago Motor Speedway, another track that NASCAR and open wheelers alike have experience at. Daytona will remain the championship's opener, with Indianapolis as the finale. Here's a look at our lineup for the 2002 IROC season, as we did have a change-up in the lineup. The field expands from 12 to 14 drivers, giving a spot to the defending IROC champion, which in this case was Rusty Wallace. 2 other notable drivers in the field come from Japan, as the 2001 AJTCC co-champions Yuji Tachikawa and Hironori Takeuchi will both give IROC a shot. It was your typical IROC race at Daytona, with all 14 drivers in a pack contending for the win, not knowing who's going to win until the final lap. Sam Hornish Jr. was leading the way with 6 laps to go, but then fellow open wheeler Elio Castroneves went to the inside in turn 3 and took the lead with Jimmy Johnson right behind him. Then coming to 5 to go, here came the Busch champion Jimmy Johnson. Johnson takes the lead from Castroneves, and Johnson kept holding on while Jeff Green and Takeuchi battled for 2nd with 4 to go. Then with 3 to go, Dale Earnhardt was looking for a way around Johnson, but was then under fire from Kyle Petty. Jimmy Johnson continued to hang on, and on the final lap, Jill DeFerrin was looking for 2nd, looking for any kind of way around Johnson, but then got passed by ARCA champion Frank Kimmel, giving way for the rising phenom, as round 1 of IROC 2002 went to Jimmy Johnson. The Busch Series champ has just won a race featuring so many heavy hitters. He is definitely proving himself already. Japan awaits as IROC arrived in Japan for the first time ever at Twin Ring Motegi, as Jeff Green and Kyle Petty led the field to the green flag in front of an excited crowd. 4 laps in, Jimmie Johnson picked up where he left off at Daytona as he took the lead from Jeff Green. Right after that, Rob Moroso then took the lead from Johnson, as I'm sure Richard Childress has to be feeling good about this moment here. By lap 11, Moroso continued to lead, but Frank Kimmel was up to second, looking impressive. Then on lap 23, Kyle Petty would take the lead from Moroso. Then 5 laps later, Moroso took the lead right back. It became a 3-car showdown between Moroso, Petty, and Kimmel. Then green flag pit stops took place just a couple of laps later. During those pit stops, Jimmie Johnson was hit with a speeding penalty and had to make another trip down pit road. Afterwards, Kyle Petty went on a tear, dominating the race and even putting other competitors a lap down. There was no stopping him either, as Kyle Petty went on to win at Motegi with Jeff Green second and Hironori Takeuchi in third. A great run for the Japanese driver. For the first time ever, IROC arrives to the Windy City as a pair of champions, Jimmie Johnson and Jeff Green, led the field to the green flag. Despite Johnson winning the pole, Jeff Green got out to an early lead, while Johnson and Danny Lazowski fought for second with Dale Earnhardt behind them. Lazowski hung in tough as he and Johnson were side by side for multiple laps at the start, while Jeff Green simply drove away. Lazowski would eventually clear for second place. Nearing the halfway point, after battling back and forth, Johnson would take second from Lazowski, while Jeff Green was a straightaway ahead. Jeff Green went to pit for green flag pit stops with 33 to go, as Johnson momentarily took the lead. With 20 to go, Jeff Green had a 12-second lead over Rob Moroso, Jimmie Johnson, and Helio Castroneves, and it pretty much stayed that way. Jeff Green goes on to win in Chicago, which put him at the top of the IROC standings, heading into the final race at Indianapolis. It's time to decide a champion for IROC 2002, as Jeff Green and Sam Hornish Jr. led the field to the green flag at the Brickyard. Jeff Green, a former Brickyard 400 winner, was looking to pick up where he left off at Chicago, but by lap 10, open-wheel driver Sam Hornish Jr. took the lead from the defending Winston Cup champion. At the halfway point, Hornish held a good lead with Patty Moise in second and Dale Earnhardt in third. Moise chased him down, but couldn't find a way around Hornish. Hornish pit a lap ahead of everyone else, and as Moise and Earnhardt exited the track from pit road, Moise tried to hold off Hornish. But going into turn 3, Hornish powers on the outside in turns 3 and 4. Moise chased him back down, but a driver who could be a future Indy 500 winner wins at the Brickyard. Sam Hornish Jr. gets it done in a very impressive performance. Patty Moise finished second, Dale Earnhardt was third, and Jeff Green would cross the line in 8th, enough to score the IROC championship. Jeff Green continues to build an impressive resume on his NASCAR career at 39 years old. But the question remains, how does his Winston Cup title defense go? We will find out later on. With that, here are the winners and the final standings from IROC 2002. We now head over to the 2002 NASCAR Busch Series season as we came off a great battle for the title between John Andretti and Jimmie Johnson, in which Johnson would capture the championship. Both Andretti and Johnson have moved up to the Winston Cup, which blows the door wide open to who could be the next rising star in NASCAR. The Busch Series has a new slate of rookies for 2002, lots of potential new stars that could potentially develop, all going after the championship. Bill Davis Racing will have 2 full-time entries for 2 of those rookies, with dirt racer Casey Kane piloting the number 1 Ford sponsored by Stacker 2, and another dirt racer, Ryan Newman, piling the number 93 Granger Ford. Richard Childress's 21 ride has a new driver, as Jimmy Johnson has moved up full-time to the Winston Cup. Childress taps Washington native Greg Biffle to take over the Rockwell Automation Chevrolet. As for John Andretti's 82 car at Jarrett Favre, that ride is taken over by Kurt Busch, who moved up from the Super Truck Series. Dodge sees a lot of potential in him. Bill Elliott's team goes full-time as well, leading the number 94 for Justin Labonte, who moves up from the Super Sportsman Series. Shane Meal will drive the number 47 for Innovative Motorsports. And lastly, for the rookies, Fitz Bradshaw Racing hires Brian Vickers to drive the 8. In terms of other changes, Hank Parker Jr. moves from his family operation, which has closed its doors, to Biaggi Brothers Racing in the number 4. Tim Sauter takes over the 19 at AP Performance Racing. Stock GT champion Bill Lester moves over to Carroll Racing to drive their Dr. Pepper Chevrolet. Elliott Sattler now drives the number 34 Smucker Chevrolet for Frank Cece. Ward Burton drives the number 36 GMC Dodge for Welliver Jessel Racing. Brian Reffner has a new ride for 2002, taking over the number 40 for Team Sapco as Adam Petty moves up to the Winston Cup. Adam Petty will still run some select races in their number 45 entry, along with Patty Moise and Shauna Robinson. And lastly, for the full-timers, Steve Park moves over to the number 54 Toys R Us Chevrolet for Team Bristol Motorsports after his previous team shuts down. Welliver Jessel will also field a part-time entry for the number 66 that will be driven by stock GT rookie Casey Mears. Hensley Motorsports will have Jeff Purvis and Elton Sawyer pilot their number 63 entry. Greg Moore continues to run part-time in Penske's number 2 alongside their Cup drivers. And not only that, Moore will become the primary driver of the 2 after his open-wheel season has concluded. Dale Earnhardt's number 15 car will be driven part-time by Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Michael Waltrip. Roberto Guerrero, David Green, and Stuart Kirby will all share the number 90 entry for the Hispanic racing team, each for a few races. Roush's number 64 will be shared between Mark Martin, Tony Roper, and Jamie McMurray, and David Rudiman will drive a few races for Nemco Motorsports. As mentioned previously, the Busch Series has a new race for 2002, as their date at Motegi is swapped with a race down under at Calder Park. Once again, this race comes during a Winston Cup off weekend, allowing a few regulars to make the trip, as well as some Australian guests. The only other new date to note is an early season race at the Nashville Fairgrounds. As discussed last season, the fairgrounds will remain on the schedule for NASCAR's lower series for the time being. The Busch Series will visit both Nashville tracks this season. This year's Heritage Cup races will be Daytona, the Spring Atlanta race, New Hampshire, and the September Darlington race. Greg Biffle looked fast in qualifying as he scored the pole for the season opener with Dale Jr. next to him in second as the 2002 Busch Series season begins. It was a calm race with many drivers in contention. Joe Gibbs appeared to look fast in the earlier portions with both Atwood and J.D. Gibbs leading. With 10 laps to go, truck driver Tony Roper was leading the way for Roush Racing. Elton Sawyer and Ricky Craven looked to be a major upset, as Greg Biffle then took the lead with 9 to go. Then with 8 to go, Casey Kane worked his way to the lead, looking to make a major impression in his first Busch start. But that didn't last long, because another young driver named Brian Vickers took the lead from Kane. The 18-year-old was looking to shock the racing world, but coming to 5 to go, Justin Labonte went down to the inside, and he would take the lead. His uncle Bobby Labonte was in the mix as well. Kevin Harvick was on the charge, and he would take the lead coming to 3 to go. As that happened, some of the leaders had to pit because they couldn't make it on fuel. It was Harvick versus the 2 Labontes. Justin Labonte took the lead back coming to 2 laps to go, with Jason Leveler in the mix for his first win. Then, going into turn 1, Labonte could not close the door on Leveler, and Leveler would get to his inside and take the lead going down the backstretch. Jason Leveler was doing all he could to hang on to the lead, but then here comes Chris Trickle on the final lap. Trickle gets to the inside of Leveler, and he gets a big push from fellow Ford driver Johnny Benson, and Chris Trickle took the lead. Benson tried to find a way around him, but Trickle held him off, and it was Chris Trickle picking up the win and joining his uncle Dick Trickle as a winner at Daytona. This marks Trickle's third career Busch Series win. Rockingham had a very competitive start between a few drivers looking for their first win or to break a winless drought. Rookie Justin Labonte started on the pole in the 94 and had an exciting battle with Stanton Barrett early, plus the veteran Ron Hornaday. As Labonte faded back, however, the early three-car fight would be Hornaday, Barrett, and Ricky Hendrick, who was looking for his first win in a year and 1 week. Hendrick worked his way around his fellow Chevy drivers and pulled away in lap traffic. We saw last week's winner Chris Trickle make up ground and enter the top three, putting on a fun fight with Hornaday for second in the end. But the 51 car had a rocket and never got challenged after his own great stop put him several seconds ahead. Ricky Hendrick wins for the first time since last year's opener and takes home his third career win as he aims for a breakthrough. As the Winston Cup and other series move to the larger track east of the city, the fairgrounds are still alive in this timeline and continue to host Busch races in the spring, and this one didn't disappoint at all. Greg Biffle started on pole in this one as one of many Chevys who took the lead, with the story being the white-hot Nemco team in this one. The 87 of Stanton Barrett was climbing fast, as well as, don't look now, in his debut, the 88 car of David Rudiman, who stormed into the top 5. Amid all these Chevys, though, it was the Dodge of Toby Porter pulling away with the lead after Greg Biffle faded back. We ultimately had a caution for Ricky Johnson wrecking on pit road that changed the order a bit and brought Jeff Burton and Kevin Harvick to the lead. But our original leaders would get closer to the front as pit strategy played out. We had another notable yellow, however, as early favorite Toby Porter was involved in a wreck with Casey Atwood and was taken out, even doing a barrel roll before landing back on his wheels. The Nemco cars led shortly after the restart, with Stanton Barrett pulling ahead. The two others had wicked fast cars to enter the picture, a returning Greg Biffle and the 40 of Brian Refner. Biffle worked his way around both Rudiman and Barrett and took the lead. And while the equally fast Refner climbed to second, he never had a shot at the lead. It's a first career win at Nashville as the Biff, Greg Biffle, takes home the win for the Childress 21 team. His decision to change tracks is off to a good start. Behind him, the Sun short track phenomenon continues as David Rudiman comes home with third in his Busch Series debut the day after his stunning Super Sportsman win. Our second round of this year's Heritage Cup bonus gave us a thrilling start. Kurt Busch scored his first career pole, but had to fight Blaze Alexander and Stanton Barrett to hold his lead, with the three of them going 3 wide at full speed on lap 6. Stanton Barrett settled into the lead for a while as Bushwhackers Alexander and Shauna Robinson followed. But following pit stops, a new driver entered the front pack and ran down Barrett for the lead, that being rookie Casey Kane. The Bushwhackers ultimately got the better of Kane, and Blaze Alexander had the car to beat. That was until final pit stops, when the other Bill Davis driver, Ryan Newman, took a risky short pit to leapfrog to the lead. Alexander had the better car and cut his lead down in traffic, but couldn't get to Newman's bumper until 5 to go. Alexander did all he could, but couldn't get it side by side until the white flag. Newman led the lap, but Alexander edged ahead on the inside in the corner until Ryan Newman made the high line work to perfection. The 93 car pulled ahead from the outside line and blocked heading into turn 3, and with that, the strategy pays off. We have back-to-back first career wins as Ryan Newman hangs on with old tires and beats the former series champion for the win. At Louisiana, Kevin Harvick started on pole and jumped out to a big lead on Ron Hornaday and Patty Moise. Hornaday did slowly close in during the second stint of the race, but Harvick maintained his advantage in short pit. Just as pit stops were wrapping up though, We had a caution with 12 to go as Justin Labonte gets checked up by David Bonnet and spins down the backstretch. Harvick kept the lead and had a big set of lappers helping him, while his teammate Kurt Busch jumped to second and battled Blaze Alexander for the spot. Harvick earns a dominant win at Louisiana, while Kurt Busch holds off the 2 for a Jarrett Favre 1-2 finish. Jay Sauter started on pole at Nazareth, but it was the second-place qualifier, Casey Kane, who rocketed ahead on the start and used clean air to his advantage. As he pulled ahead, Sauter and Trickle battled for second, with Kane's lead being extended until reaching lap traffic. When pit stops occurred, Kane's lead did get cut down to 2 seconds by one driver who had a perfect stop. In his first race of the season, Greg Moore in the Penske car. He jumped to second and even managed lap traffic just a bit better to get within a second of Casey Kane, but he ran out of laps, and after a pair of lap cars boxed him in. Casey Kane pulls ahead to be our third first career win of the season, a remarkable 10 winners in 10 races, and all at the same time. Greg Moore makes a statement that he's here to play. As for the standings, Casey Kane has been setting the NASCAR world on fire, having a 104-point lead over Chris Trickle, and Kane was looking impressive early on. Did you come from a land down under for a round of NASCAR Thunder? As Calder Park and Motegi swap their IROC dates, the Busch Series Overseas race heads to a new track, with multiple Aussie guests in the field, including the return of Jim Richards driving for Team Sapco, and Craig Lowndes driving for Brett Bodine. This race also featured Mark Skife with DEI, Owen Kelly with Aikens Motorsports, and supercar up-and-comer Marcos Ambrose with Roush Racing. With that said, it was Chevy domination between a trio of regulars. Jay Sauter started on the pole and led the early stages as his teammate Greg Biffle closed in, along with the 74 of Jeff Burton. As lap traffic brought the three of them together, Burton made a short pit to take the lead and had a brief chance to expand it until lap cars brought the trio together again. Final stop saw a similar story. Jeff Burton came in first and kept advantage, but Biffle leapfrogged his teammate on pit road for second. The two RCR cars battled and let Jeff Burton pull away. And this ridiculously competitive season continues. Jeff Burton wins the inaugural race in Australia for his second win at Base Motorsports, now at an incredible 11 different winners. Kerry Earnhardt scored the pole just a couple of races later for Mid-Ohio, and it appears he might have learned some things from his father running sports cars, because he dominated all race long. Kerry Earnhardt kept it clean, but there was an accident with 4 to go when Ron Hornaday broke down, causing Johnny Benson and others to run into him, causing a small pileup. We did restart with 2 laps to go, but it was no issue for the number 14 Bass Pro Shop Chevrolet, and at long last, Kerry Earnhardt finally gets his first career Busch Series win at Mid-Ohio. From the fairgrounds in the spring to the suburbs in the summer, Ryan Newman started on the pole in this one and led the opening laps at Nashville Superspeedway, but had to fend off Kerry Earnhardt and Kurt Busch. Busch was the one to make the pass and lead for much of the early going. But DEI wouldn't be denied, as Ron Hornaday led some laps, and Kerry Earnhardt continued to show that he had the best car. For much of the late going, Kerry Earnhardt extended his lead while Kurt Busch faded, but he did keep second. Final stops allowed Kurt to be jumped by Hornaday to make it a DEI 1-2, as Kerry Earnhardt gets his second win of the season and of his career at Nashville Superspeedway. Meanwhile, Casey Kane continues to hold a 93-point lead in the standings. While there were a few bushwhackers in the field for SoCal, this one was dominated by 3 full-timers, each looking for a second win: pole sitter Ryan Newman, Chris Trickle, and Greg Biffle. They were the 3-car breakaway for much of the day, before pit stops split them into 2 tandems, Newman and Trickle in front, while Biffle was caught by Greg Moore. This was his third start of the season, and all 3 races he's run in the top 10. A very notable feat for the open-wheeler, who may look to come to NASCAR sooner than he expected. SoCal is a track where you need to keep your pace in line and know when to pounce up high, but Newman never did. It was Newman and Trickle up front the whole latter part of the race, with Newman eventually breaking free from him to pull away without giving Trickle the draft. Rocket Man Ryan Newman earns a statement win, his second win of the season, as he looks to garner the consistency of his teammate. We had a pair of winners this season dominate Watkins Glen. Pole sitter Kerry Earnhardt and second place Kevin Harvick put on a show in front of the field, with Harvick clearly being the faster car, but Kerry Earnhardt playing expert defense. Harvick got side by side with him multiple times, but was unable to make a move. It was even the same on pit road. They pit the same lap and came out just inches apart, with Kerry Earnhardt defending the lead. Kerry Earnhardt pulled away a bit in the second run before history repeated itself with Harvick, and then a third challenger in the final 5 laps as Stanton Barrett ran down the leaders amid their own battle. As the trio ran in a line waiting to make moves, Barrett finally broke out of line with 2 to go to dive bomb Harvick in turn 1 before breaking away with second in the S's. While this was needed for Stanton, it gave the 14 the room to pull away, and Kerry Earnhardt puts the finishing touches on a dominant run to win at Watkins Glen. Despite his inconsistency, he's the first driver to hit 3 wins this season, and 2 of them being on road courses at that. We were in for a wild one today in the Irish Hills of Michigan, as Michael Waltrip scored the pole. He and Greg Biffle led the field to the green flag, and we got your typical exciting Michigan racing with all kinds of passing and lead changes. The first caution came out during the first round of green flag pit stops when Ron Hornaday spun Kurt Busch as they both came off pit road. It was only a single car spin. With 19 to go, it was 4 wide between Blaney McMurray, Clifford Allison, and Shane Meal as they got sandwiched. Blaney goes up the track, gets into Hank Parker Jr., and they all wreck in turns 1 and 2. Ricky Johnson was also involved. Jason Leffler led the field back to the green flag with 13 to go, as a lot of the leaders chose not to pit, which led to many pitting after the restart, which also led to Casey Kane taking over the lead, trying to stretch his points lead. With 4 laps to go, Kane was held up by lap traffic and was passed by Jason Keller for the lead. But both of them were out of gas and had to pit, handing the lead over to Mike Wallace. Mike Wallace was out by himself, and for the second year in a row, Mike Wallace scored the upset win at Michigan. As we enter the last third of the season, we had a clean battle at Darlington between a series champion and drivers looking to notch a second win in the title fight. Casey Kane started on pole and had a good run early, fighting Ricky Hendrick and Greg Biffle for the lead, exchanging the lead back and forth. As time went on though, Casey Kane would fade a bit, and the Bushwhacker and defending Heritage Cup bonus winner Blaze Alexander inserted himself into the lead fight. Hendrick had the best car of the day, but Blaze kept him in hot pursuit. And Stanton Barrett also entered the top 3 off a short pit strategy that he made stick. In the end though, not even the 2000 champion could catch the 51 on a mission, and Ricky Hendrick gets his second win of the season at a time where he needs the momentum. At the end of the 4 Heritage Cup races, we have a Mr. Three-Peat. Blaze Alexander captures the Heritage Cup bonus once again. He wins it over Ricky Hendrick by just 4 points in a very close battle. Chris Trickle started on the pole at Richmond and was one of 3 dominant cars between him, Jay Sauter, and Kevin Harvick. Sauter took a while to take the lead away from Trickle, but did so right before pit stops and a caution for Ricky Craven. As Sauter pulled away from Harvick with the lead, disaster struck for a few cars, including the pole sitter as Kurt Busch and the lap car Buckshot Jones got together. However, the 2 of them were able to continue. This ended with a 12-lap run where Jay Sauter, Kevin Harvick, and last year's winner Bobby Labonte all went at it, with the 31 pulling away as Jay Sauter gets his first win of the year. At Dover, Kevin Harvick led the field to the green flag as he would lead for the first 9 laps. Then he got passed by Ricky Hendrick, and Hendrick looked fast. The 51 would lead all the way to the first round of green flag pit stops, but then Chris Trickle would take over the lead. And from there was no stopping that number 7 car, as Chris Trickle picked up his second win of 2002. Kasey Kahne scored the pole and was doing all he could to continue his quest for the championship. Kahne looked strong and led all the way to the first round of pit stops. Then Shauna Robinson would take over the lead, but after the next round of pit stops, Jay Sauter took the lead, and he would go on to win at Talladega in what was a very calm race. Kasey Kahne continued to control the point lead, having a 165-point lead over Kerry Earnhardt. The fall Charlotte race started with many of the series heavy hitters up front, with Kerry Earnhardt on pole, followed by Kasey Kahne and Kevin Harvick, who each took their own turns leading this one. Kevin Harvick had the best car of the early going, leading the race until Chris Trickle leapfrogged the leaders during first pit stops, but Kevin Harvick ultimately hunted down during the run. Harvick has his own short pitting during second pit stops and built a larger lead over Trickle and Greg Biffle, but final stops had big implications on multiple fronts. Kasey Kahne went from having a bad long-run car, falling out of the top 10, to being stuck on pit road multiple laps, and just like that, his points lead takes a massive hit. Kahne ended up finishing last place on the day, 5 laps down. In front, however, there was another notable change. While Kevin Harvick kept the lead, Ryan Newman jumped up to second during the final cycle and was catching Harvick fast. The 93 car closed in just a few laps and made the pass on Harvick with 7 to go. Ryan Newman truly did look like a rocket man, going from second place to a 2-second lead in the final few laps, and Ryan Newman gets his 3rd win of the year at Charlotte. Could he be making a late charge to be near the top of the standings? A fun, clean, short track race at Memphis gave us a look at who has the most momentum going into the last few races, but a part-time driver sat on pole, that being Michael Waltrip in the DEI 15. Waltrip led early, but was passed up by Kevin Harvick, who led for a bit before fellow Californian Ron Hornaday caught him and took the lead just before pit stops. Hornaday kept a narrow lead after stops as he battled lap traffic, and Kasey Kahne jumped to 3rd off short pitting and had a great second half car. Harvick used the lap car of Ward Burton to make a pass shortly after and pulled away for a bit, before more lap traffic allowed both Hornaday and Kahne to reel him in. And with less than 10 laps to go, Harvick was being blocked by a 3-wide pack of lappers, while Kahne and Hornaday cut down the deficit. It was over when Harvick finally got past traffic with 2 to go, and Kevin Harvick gets his 3rd win of the season. He and Kahne in second seem to have the most momentum as the margin of error gets even smaller. Riverside had a lot of storylines from the get-go, as a driver with road course experience started on the pole. Greg Moore. Moore had a very competitive start with Kasey Kahne, with Kahne briefly getting the better of him and leading the first lap before Greg Biffle got around both of them and stole the lead coming to lap 3. From this point on, Greg Biffle dominated and got out to a 13-second lead before the caution came out. On the restart, Biffle couldn't get away as easy as the lap car of Jason Keller held him up and let Kahne, Benson, and Moore stay on his bumper. Kahne took it side by side twice with Biffle, but couldn't make either run work. Biffle finally weaseled his way around the 57 and pulled ahead, albeit much more modesty than the first half. Greg Biffle went on to win at Riverside for his 2nd win, and the rookie star Kasey Kahne only 1 race win on the year, but he comes home with 3 second-place finishes in a row. Greg Moore came home 4th in another race that shows that he means business in NASCAR. It was clutch time. Kasey Kahne held a 158-point lead over Kevin Harvick with 2 races to go. And we had a fun one in Florida today, as for the second time in 3 races, Greg Moore started on pole at an oval he's raced at in other series. Kasey Kahne started second and followed his lead early. Moore maintained the lead, and then a caution came out for Jeff Burton and Mike Wallace, wrecking hard down the backstretch. A tough break for the Base Motorsports drivers. At the restart, Kasey Kahne was pushed up high a bit and lost a few spots, while Shauna Robinson took second and dueled Greg Moore for the lead. Moore held his own, however, and brought home the most laps led before Shauna Robinson got by him with 30 laps to go. Robinson would then pull ahead to win back-to-back races as a bushwhacker, but the title fight is interesting. Kahne still has a large advantage, even after finishing 15th, with many of his fellow contenders beside him. But a third-place finish from Greg Biffle gives him an outside chance. He was now back by 124 points from Kasey Kahne. While Adam Petty scored the pole at Atlanta and Greg Biffle started 5th, it was a whole different story for our points leader. Kasey Kahne ended up qualifying 28th, and not only that, his world was turned upside down on lap 5 when Elliott Sadler cut in front of him, causing Kahne to make contact with the wall as Sadler wrecked and barrel rolled into turns 3 and 4. With that, Elliott Sadler was done for the day, but Kasey Kahne was able to keep going with minimal damage. Everyone went to pit under the yellow, handing the lead over to Jeff Burton, while Greg Biffle restarted 6th and Kasey Kahne was 41st. Just a couple of laps later, Adam Petty quickly found his way back to the lead, as Greg Biffle, on the other hand, was getting shuffled back and would drop to 10th. On lap 38 during green flag stops, Ron Hornaday got into Buckshot Jones going to the apron, and this sent them up the track into Kerry Earnhardt, Hornaday's teammate. Earnhardt was done for the day, and during the caution, Greg Biffle had an extra long pit stop that would cost him big time and would restart 31st. Toby Porter restarted as the leader, hungry for a win, but Adam Petty had other plans, taking the lead very quickly once again. Petty led all the way towards the end of the race, when with 13 to go, Stanton Barrett and Michael Waltrip caught up to Petty. Stanton Barrett would end up taking the lead, and he would go on to collect his second win of the 2002 season, winning the season finale at Atlanta. Meanwhile, Greg Biffle finished 25th, and Kasey Kahne was a lap down in 34th. Despite the early mishap, it all worked out for the sport's newest phenom. Kasey Kahne is your NASCAR Busch Series champion for 2002. Much like Nathan Hosley in Super Sportsman last year, Kasey Kahne came into this season unknown, but everybody knows him now, and he has clearly set the NASCAR world on fire with his consistency. He's already looking like one of the most electrifying drivers in NASCAR right now, and maybe perhaps we may see him in Cup sooner rather than later. With all that being said, here is a look at all of your winners and the final standings from the 2002 NASCAR Busch Series season. We had a lot of breakout drivers this year, and it is also to note that Blaze Alexander took home the Heritage Cup bonus once again for the 3rd year in a row. Will anybody top him next season? We'll have to find out. But with that, we had a lot of rising stars in Greg Biffle, Kasey Kahne, Kurt Busch. Kerry Earnhardt had a huge breakout year as well, and it'll be interesting to see where they go next going into 2003. And now it is time to cover the 2002 NASCAR Winston Cup Series season. A season that was packed with excitement, much like last season, as we witnessed Jeff Green capturing his first NASCAR Winston Cup championship with Richard Childress Racing. Green is now looking to go back-to-back, but he will have a lot of competition this season. The Winston Cup schedule has 3 changes to the schedule for 2002, though only one affects points races. As announced last season, Nashville Superspeedway receives a Winston Cup date, replacing the fairgrounds at the Cup level. This new date will come from the first Michigan race, the weekend before the 4th of July. As previously discussed, Atlanta Motor Speedway will maintain the season finale for the foreseeable future, keeping Homestead Miami's points race in October. They do, however, get another marquee opportunity in 2002, hosting the Winston All-Star race in May. The rotating All-Star party heads to South Beach, along with the aforementioned added Truck Series race there. As for the last change, it has to do with the International Exhibition. After a pair of successful years in Rio, NASCAR rotates the postseason showcase to a new venue. NASCAR has raced in Australia, Asia, and South America, and now it's finally time to go to Europe. Barcelona, Spain, and Circuit de Catalunya will host the exhibition in 2002 and 2003. For the first time since Suzuka, the exhibition returns on a road course as NASCAR's best and a few guests compete in eastern Spain. 2002's silly season saw some of NASCAR's big teams continue to grow, while emerging teams make changes on the hunt to become contenders. Let's start with the most notable team swap, which happened at Chip Ganassi Racing. After a very disappointing 2001 season, Ken Schrader leaves Ganassi's 01 car for a different opportunity. Taking over this car is someone Dodge hopes can continue momentum that led him to his first career win last season, Jerry Nadeau. Nadeau leaves Petty Enterprises, and we'll circle back to who takes the 43 soon. As for Schrader, he stays in the Dodge camp at a new full-time team, BAM Racing. The 49 car goes full-time with Schrader a year earlier than in real life, carrying sponsorship from Pizza Hut following the closure of Galaxy Motorsports. Another notable move occurred over at Jared Farr Motorsports. After solid seasons in the Busch Series but a lack of success at the Cup level, Tommy Kendall leaves the 32 car, and it will be taken over by John Andretti, making his return to the Winston Cup after finishing second in the Busch Series last season. Discover Car takes over as the primary sponsor on that team, while Tommy Kendall takes over the number 96 PPI Motorsports car, with Eddie Bierschwell retiring after 2001. Finally, for the veterans, Robbie Gordon makes his return to full-time Winston Cup racing, replacing Rick Mast in the Jasper 77. As for the rookies, we have 3 drivers who were strong in the Busch Series getting called up to the big leagues. We begin with the series champion, Jimmy Johnson. The 4th RCR team, the number 30 America Online Chevrolet, goes full-time this year, with the El Cajon native looking to impress with the championship team. Along him is another youngster with a lot of excitement around him. Adam Petty is coming home and will drive his grandfather's number 43 full-time. The Petty Enterprises team strengthens their relationship with Team Sapco, serving as the de facto 4th Sapco car, while his father continues to drive the number 42. Lastly, for the rookie class, Busch Series veteran Tim Fudua takes over the Tide Ride, the number 36 MB2 car, as he gives Winston Cup racing a go. The 36's previous driver, Wally Dallenbach, steps away from full-time racing to move into broadcasting, though he will make a few starts this season in Junie Dunleavy's 90 car. In addition to these team storylines, the 2002 season sees a big shakeup on the sponsor's side, and none are bigger than Shauna Robinson. Kmart's bankruptcy going into 2002 forced them to exit the sport, leaving a void with one of the sport's stars, Shauna Robinson. In 2002, Robinson will exchange the white, red, and purple for new colors, black and white. Sharpie and Rubbermaid joins Team Sapco with the number 40 car having a brand new look that will be split by the 2 sister brands throughout the season. Sharpie isn't the only new sponsor at Team Sapco this year though, as Patty Moise also gets a new look. Alltel joins the 45 car, with the white and blue becoming Moise's primary paint scheme. Barbie and Mattel will serve as a secondary sponsor, and, as you just saw, remains the sponsor of their Busch All-Star car. Lastly, for full-time sponsors, Kellogg's returns to NASCAR after a few years away, joining Blaze Alexander for his sophomore season at Penske. Mobil 1 will continue to be a secondary sponsor for him as well. As for notable part-timers, Wood Brothers Racing will once again run a 3-driver rotation of Dick Trickle, Tony Roper, and Mark Simo. The 60-year-old Trickle also announced that this will be his final season of Winston Cup racing, including one more entry in the Daytona 500, which he won in 1989. Haas CNC Racing will make its debut in the series, with its part-time 60 being driven by Tammy Jo Kirk. Dunleavy's number 90 car will be driven by Jason Hidleski and Wally Dallenbach. Meanwhile, a new Cup Series team is Quest Motor Racing, owned by Derek Cope. Cope will drive the number 37 Friendly's car, as well as Stuart Kirby and Hideo Fukuyama, who will make his Winston Cup debut late in the season. Ron Fellows and Scott Pruitt will once again split a fourth Sapco car, the 47, at road courses. However, at the Watkins Glen race, they'll both be making an appearance, with Fellows in the 47 and Pruitt in a one-off number 44, sponsored by Coca-Cola. Ware Racing Enterprises makes its debut with a rotation led by Cindy Peterson, also featuring Carl Long and Brian Rose. Long will also once again drive for the Mansion Motorsports 58 team. Tim Richmond will once again enter some races in the Hendrick 46. Rodney Orr will drive his own 73 car, and Morgan Shepherd driving his own 89. Bobby Labonte, Barry Bonine, and Dave Blaney will drive for Team CLR. Hermie Sadler returns to the 13 at Score Motorsports. And finally, Mike Wallace will attempt a one-off at Gateway for Base Motorsports. With all that said, there's one last story we should cover before the season begins. And that has to do with the man in black. 50-year-old Dale Earnhardt announced heading into the season that 2002 will be his final year racing full-time in the Winston Cup Series. He's ready to embark on a new chapter and race some different series while growing his own team, including driving for DEI on occasion over the next few years. The three-time champion and three-time Daytona 500 winner helped put Richard Childress Racing on the map. And with the team the best they've ever been, Dale will make one last dance with his owner of nearly 2 decades. Speed Weeks has officially returned, and as always we kick things off with the Bud Shootout at Daytona, as Tony Stewart and Casey Elliott led the field to the start of the 20-lap exhibition race. Per usual, there were plenty of lead changes, making for quite an exciting race. Halfway through, we saw a battle between father and son, as Dale Earnhardt led with Dale Earnhardt Jr. in second. Dale Jr. would then take the lead from his father. Shortly after, Casey Elliott would then take the lead. Then with 6 to go, Kyle Petty took control of the lead as the action began to heat up. Tony Stewart then led with 5 to go, but then Patty Moise took the lead in her new all-tail colors, with Dick Trickle giving her the push. What a run by the 61-year-old! But then on the move was Shauna Robinson, the 2-time Daytona 500 winner, as she got to second. And then she would take the lead with 3 laps to go. She had to hold off last year's shootout winner Ricky Rudd in the process, but she would indeed do so, as Shauna Robinson would go on to win the 2002 Bud Shootout, becoming the first female winner of this event, and her first win with her new sponsors. Sometimes it just writes itself. Dale Earnhardt scored the pole for the first dual race, which means he will lead the field to the green flag for the 44th Daytona 500. Earnhardt and Marlin led the way as the Intimidator led for 4 laps. Ernie Irvan then took over the lead coming to lap 5, and then the lead would change a few hands as Kyle Petty would take over the lead on lap 11 from Kelly Earnhardt. Then a couple of laps later, Dale Singer took the lead, but would then lose it to Paige Jones very quickly. Jones held his own very well for the next several laps, but then with 10 to go, he was challenged by Texas Terry himself, Terry Labonte. Labonte would end up taking the lead. With 8 laps to go, he would then lose the lead to Sterling Marlin. DEI ran 1-2 at 5 to go, with Kelly Earnhardt leading and Tony Stewart in second. Stewart then took the lead, but then was passed by Kyle Petty coming to 4 to go. Then with 3 to go, Shauna Robinson was looking to go 2 for 2 in Speed Weeks as she took the lead, but on the final lap and heading down the backstretch, she was overtaken by the 2-time Winston Cup champ, Terry Labonte. Labonte would go on to win dual race number 1, and even though it's a non-points race, it was a feel-good moment for Texas Terry to finally be back in victory lane. Now the question is, can he win the Great American Race? Rob Moroso posted the second fastest time in time trials, giving us an RCR front row for the Daytona 500. He and Casey Elliott led the field to the green flag to set the rest of the field. Rob Moroso would lead for the first couple of laps, but was then passed by Matt Kenseth. Moroso led for a while around the halfway point, but with 13 to go, Patty Moise was leading the way. RCR ran 1-2 at 5 to go, as rookie Jimmy Johnson was leading with Moroso in second, and then Kelly Williams in third. Moroso would take the lead shortly after, and then coming to 2 to go, Jeff Gordon was trying to get past Rob Moroso for the lead, but he ends up going high into turn 1, and here comes John Andretti. Andretti went 3 wide going into turn 1, and he would take the lead with Norm Benning right behind him. Benning had ridden in the back all race, but suddenly found himself second with 2 to go. Andretti kept the lead as Dale Jr. was working his way past Benning for second, and Dodge would go on to sweep the duels as John Andretti wins duel race number 2. The field is set, but we did have a handful of drivers going home. The most notable of them being Tim Richmond. He fails to make the Daytona 500 along with Bobby Hamilton, Tim Futua, Tommy Kendall, Carl Long, Bobby Labonte, Derek Cope, and Rodney Orr. Here we are once again. It is a beautiful February afternoon in Daytona Beach, Florida, and that can only mean one thing: the start of a new NASCAR Winston Cup Series season. And where else but NASCAR's version of the Super Bowl, the Daytona 500. Last year, we saw Bubba Nissen snap a long winless drought as he made a last lap pass to win his second Daytona 500. Many stories are to be written, and someone is looking to add their name to the history books here today. Here we go. It is a beautiful February afternoon, and 42 drivers are chasing a dream. Over 170,000 people are in attendance as the pace car goes down pit road. Dale Earnhardt and Rob Moroso will lead the field to the green flag, and the 44th Daytona 500 is underway. Down the backstretch for the first time, Dale Earnhardt leads. Terry Labonte is second. Ernie Irvan leads that inside line as they head into turn 3. And now Terry Labonte looks to the inside of Earnhardt, and he's going to take the lead. A clean start here as the 1984 and 1987 Winston Cup champion has taken the lead as they come back to complete the first lap of the Great American Race. And those 5 bonus points will go to Texas Terry, Ernie Irvan and Kyle Petty. A couple other of Winston Cup champions there. Shauna Robinson in the mix as well. And up front, you also see Al Unser Jr., who has struggled to make the Daytona 500 the last couple of years. So it's great to see him finally make the Great American Race as he's currently running up front here early. Down the backstretch once again, there's Kyle Petty in that UPS Pontiac. He's going to dip to the inside. Looks like he might have some help from Shauna Robinson as they head into turn 3. On board with Shauna Robinson there, sporting her new colors with Rubbermaid and Sharpie this season. Looking for her third Daytona 500. Off turn 4, Petty, Robinson, Labonte, Unser, Irvan make up your top 5 as they come to lap 3. Al Unser Jr. now leads that inside line. You see Tony Stewart, last year's pole sitter, in that inside line as well. Sabco 1-2. Kyle Petty leading the way. Of course, Richard and Lee Petty, known here very well and have won here on multiple occasions. Kyle Petty would love to join them as a Daytona 500 champion. Al Unser Jr. peeking to the inside. He wants second. A guy notorious at Indy. He wants to be notoriously known at Daytona as well. He's trying to make up for missing the 500 for the last couple of years. As they come off turn 4, he continues to chase down Kyle Petty, and a picture-perfect start to the 44th Daytona 500. There's Blaze Alexander up to second. He's got some Fords behind him, including Alan Kulwicki, the 1998 winner, Paige Jones, and of course, Rusty Wallace. Still chasing that elusive Daytona 500 as Blaze Alexander with his new Kellogg's Ford takes the lead as we go on board with Alan Kulwicki, who's chasing his second Daytona 500. 12 laps in, Jeremy Mayfield leading the way for AJ Foyt. You see Jeff Gordon, but in front of him, how about the rookie, the defending Busch Series champion, Jimmy Johnson, as he takes the lead, trying to impress early, on board with Kelly Williams, who's trying to have a better year this year for Jared Farr Motorsports. They come off turn 4. Rookie Jimmy Johnson leads the Daytona 500. Kelly Williams looks to the inside of Jeff Gordon. Dale Jr. thought about going with her, but decided against it, but Sterling Marlin will join her instead, as Kelly Williams takes her Home Depot Dodge to the front here at Daytona. Became an explosive star on the Super Sportsman circuit later in the Busch Series, and now trying to make a name for herself here in the Winston Cup. Can she be the next female to potentially win the Daytona 500? There's still plenty of racing to go, as Sterling Marlin now takes the lead with Tim Steele behind him. So many lead changes, and everyone is still a contender to win this race. On board with Rob Moroso and diving down to the inside. She's always been good here. That's Kelly Earnhardt, using lessons learned from her father, of course, the 1997 Daytona 500 champion. Behind her is Jeff Gordon. You may remember last year he wrecked out of this race early. Jeff Gordon trying to avenge himself from that. Kelly Earnhardt trying to win a second Daytona 500. That would be 5 Daytona 500 wins across the Earnhardts. Casey Elliott up there in the mix as well, up to 3rd. Robbie Gordon also in 4th in that Jasper Ford. Coming to lap 28 now. Rob Moroso leads, Jeff Gordon behind him, but look who's behind Jeff Gordon. That is Norm Benning. Yes, he's always been that underdog story. Finds ways to make the Daytona 500. That's just him and his own little shop, his own team, and he has done so much to make the 500. And look at this as he's running up front in his own number 84 Sobe Chevrolet. But now he's caught in a sucker hole as he's going to get passed by Terry Labonte and Kelly Earnhardt. Off turn 4, Rob Moroso still leading, trying to avenge himself from last year as he was 2 corners away from winning this race. Into turn 3, Blaze Alexander trying to hold on, but here comes Rusty Wallace. Rusty Wallace, so many times of trying, and has come up so close so many times. The only thing he hasn't done in his Winston Cup career is win the Daytona 500. Can the two get it done in 2002? Still plenty of racing left, but Rusty Wallace driving hard. He wants to win that Daytona 500. Reaching the halfway point in the Great American Race, and green flag pit stops have begun. You see Ernie Irvan, Kyle Petty, and Kelly Earnhardt making their way down pit road as green flag pit stops begin. All 3 drivers there looking for good service on their cars. They want to get back out there as quick as they can. It's been a clean race so far. Here we are, almost 30 laps to go. Everything has cycled through. Bill Elliott, the 1987 winner, is leading, but he's got a massive pack chasing him down, consisting of John Andretti, Dale Sr., Paige Jones, Matt Kenseth, Jerry Nadeau, Ricky Rudd, Patty Moise, and look at Dale Earnhardt as Dale Earnhardt jumps to the lead, looking for that 4th Daytona 500. As we take a look from Lake Lloyd, Paige Jones moves to 2nd. Dale Earnhardt in his final full-time Winston Cup season wants to go off on a high note. Can he win the Great American Race one more time? Matt Kenseth, meanwhile, dives to the inside. He's going to get past Paige Jones. And remember, Kenseth, he has yet to win a Winston Cup race. He wants to do that this year. He needs this to be a big year for him. And he's going for it. He's going after Earnhardt. To the inside, here comes Matt Kenseth in that DuPont 200 years Ford. Matt Kenseth go side by side, and he's most likely going to take the lead here. Can Matt Kenseth get his first career win at the Daytona 500? We've seen it before. 42 laps are complete. AK Racing runs 1-2. Ernie Irvan leads, but here comes Alan Kulwicki. He has won at least a race every year since 1988, trying to keep that streak alive, as well as earn his second Daytona 500. Bill Elliott behind him as the veterans lead the way. "20 laps to go. That is the view from Kenny Brack, and back comes Matt Kenseth. A pair of drivers trying to get their first career win here today. Matt Kenseth trying to represent the next generation, the young guns. Driving for Roger Penske, but look at this, Chad Little, the 1999 winner who pulled off that massive upset. That was his only career Cup win. Can he get his second here today as we go on board with that DeWalt Pontiac for Joe Gibbs Racing? Chad Little trying to chase down Matt Kenseth as we're entering the closing stages of this year's Daytona 500. "10 laps to go at the line. Kelly Earnhardt leads. Kenny Brack second. But look at this. Dale Earnhardt to the inside of Brack. And now it's an Earnhardt 1-2. Kelly Earnhardt leads. It's daughter versus father. You can't write this better enough, folks. Could it come down to the family of Earnhardts as they come off turn 2 and down the backstretch? The crowd goes wild. They are loving this moment. And Dale Earnhardt, he dips to the inside. He wants to win this race. Dale Earnhardt to the inside of Kelly Earnhardt. And now he's going to take the lead. He's got help from the 93 of Paige Jones. Dale Sr., less than 10 laps away from a fourth Daytona 500. Can he do it? Can the Intimidator win it in his final full-time season? Back across the line, Paige Jones is behind him. Earnhardt trying to hold him off. As they head into turn 1, Joe Nemechek up to third. You may remember 1993. He got his first career Cup win in this very race as a rookie when he drove for Rick Hendrick. This is it. This is for all the marbles. 4 laps remain. Kelly Earnhardt wants second from Patty Moise. And now it's once again father versus daughter. A combined total of 4 Daytona 500 wins. Then you got Kenny Brack in third. Can the Swede win the 500? Bill Elliott up there looking for his second. Earnhardt and Brack dive to the inside. Into turn 3, here we go. Kelly Earnhardt to the inside of her own father. She takes the lead with help from Kenny Brack. And off turn 4, Kelly Earnhardt, who has been so consistent in this race. She's been close multiple times since winning it her rookie year. 3 laps remain in the Great American Race. Kelly Earnhardt trying to get DEI back in victory lane. She won the 600 last year. She wants to continue that momentum this season. Chad Little, meanwhile, is up to second. John Nemechek in the mix. However, the 51, I will note, is lapped. He is a lap down and is not a factor to win this race, but could be a factor in the outcome of it. And here's Chad Little to the inside of Kelly Earnhardt. How about Chad Little in the 17? This looks like 1999 all over again, because this was the 1-2. And Little's going to get help from the lap car of Nemechek as they come off turn 4, back to the tri-oval. 2 more times around this 2.5-mile oval. 2 laps remain. Chad Little still leading. Ernie Irvan's up there. Matt Kenseth as well. It's not over until it is over. It's not over until that checkered flag waves. On board with John Nemechek. Again, he's a lap car. Somebody's got to get past him quick if they want to win this race, and they are running out of time. Down the backstretch for the second to last time. Who's going to make the move here? Nemechek's going to go. He's not wasting any time. He's got plenty of momentum now, but Matt Kenseth's now going to play this to his advantage. Here comes Matt Kenseth. Matt Kenseth has the opportunity of a lifetime to win the Daytona 500 for his first win He finally wants to get his first Winston Cup win. He wants to get into victory lane. White flag, final lap of the 44th Daytona 500. Matt Kenseth's going to take the lead, and John Andretti is behind him for Jared Farr Motorsports. John Andretti wants to join Mario as a Daytona 500 winner. Does he have enough time? Down the backstretch for the final time, it's Kenseth and Andretti. Two drivers fighting for their first career win. Paige Jones in third. Andretti gets the door slammed on him though. He might be out of time here. Through turns 3 and 4, coming to the finish. Checkered flag is waving, and it's going to be the young Wisconsin native, Matt Kenseth. Matt Kenseth wins the Daytona 500. Matt Kenseth finally gets his first career Winston Cup win, and we've seen it happen over the years. A first major career win at the Daytona 500. Finally, Matt Kenseth is a winner in the Winston Cup Series. As you take a look at our top 10, what an exciting finish in this race. And how about John Andretti with an impressive debut in his new Cup ride. We head over to Rockingham, North Carolina for race 2 of the 2002 season as Rob Moroso scored the pole with Adam Petty starting alongside him. Moroso built an early lead as Casey Elliott found his way to second. It was clear Moroso's team brought a fast car with them. On lap 28, Bill Elliott and Kyle Petty were battling for 10th when Petty ran into the 9, sending Elliott into the wall and spinning to bring out the caution. Elliott would keep going. Moroso continued to lead after the restart, but on the move was our defending champion, Jeff Green. Green quickly got past Casey Elliott for second, and then began to reel in his RCR teammate. Then on lap 45, Green went to the inside of Moroso as they duked it out for the lead. Green would then take the lead, as this was the story all race. Moroso and Green were the class of the field, but on the other end of RCR, we had trouble on lap 56 when Jimmy Johnson ran right into the quarter panel of Dale Sr., turning Earnhardt into the wall as Johnson also smacked the wall. Both, however, would continue on. Rob Moroso gained the lead back during pit stops and led the field back to the green. Green tried to find an opportunity, but Moroso was able to handle lap traffic much better. Green flag pit stops took place around 40 to go, and this time put Jeff Green ahead of Moroso by over 3 seconds. It all looked like Green was going to pull away with the win until 8 laps to go. Blaze Alexander had pit off sequence and had fresher tires, causing him to catch a group of cars swarming Green. Alexander drove hard into turn 3, getting into the 31 and sending Jeff Green into the wall. Jeff Green got it back going quickly, but he would lose the lead to Rob Moroso. We ended up with a 3-lap dash to the finish as a lap car Bubba Nissen was in between Moroso and Green. Green tried to find a way around Moroso but couldn't. And then this led to a massive charge from our Daytona 500 winner, Matt Kenseth. Kenseth takes second with 2 to go, and on the final lap, he got around Nissen. Kenseth tried to find an opening coming to the checkers, but ran out of time as Rob Moroso picks up his first win of 2002. Despite earlier troubles, Jimmy Johnson finished 10th after his mishap. We head next to Sin City as Patty Moise scored the pole with a white-hot Matt Kenseth starting in second. However, things would change pretty quick on the first lap when Sterling Marlin and Ernie Irvan got together as Irvan went up into the wall in turn 3 to bring out the caution. Most of the leaders pit, but some stayed out, and Bill Elliott restarted as the leader with Adam Petty in second. By lap 14, Adam Petty would take the lead, with Blaze Alexander working his way up to second, while Matt Kenseth would get to third. Petty and others began to pit around lap 30, and then on lap 34, Casey Elliott ran into Matt Kenseth, who had just come off pit road, and Elliott spun and hit the wall to bring out the caution. Shauna Robinson restarted as leader, but shortly after would lose the lead to our defending champion, Jeff Green. Green took the lead, and he never looked back. Jeff Green kicks off his tile defense with his first win of the season at Las Vegas. Paige Jones was second, Davey Allison had a good day, finishing in third. This would kick off a monstrous start to the season for the 31 team, as Jeff Green would win again at Infineon, and then would go 3 in a row after that to win at Atlanta. There were definitely no signs of a championship hangover coming from Jeff Green. The last 2 Busch champions and good friends were on the front row for Darlington, as Jimmie Johnson scored his first career Winston Cup pole with Blaise Alexander next to him. Johnson led for the opening portion of the race, as Casey Elliott did take second from Alexander from the start, but Alexander charged back up to second in no time. Green flag pit stops took place 30 laps in, and after that, Johnson wound up in second as Casey Elliott took the lead. Then on lap 61, Johnson got past Elliott to take the lead back, just right before green flag pit stops as well. But Casey Elliott pit ahead of Johnson and gained the lead right back after that cycle was completed. On lap 79, Casey Elliott got out of shape and back came the rookie. Jimmie Johnson would lead for a third time in the race, and Johnson had another great pit stop in the final round of pit stops. He was looking to get his first Winston Cup win, and he was looking strong. But with under 20 laps to go, Jeff Gordon ran him down and would take the lead from Johnson. With 3 laps to go, Johnson would have to pit as he ran low on fuel. He was running in second, having a strong day, and would instead end up finishing in 19th. Jeff Gordon, meanwhile, would pick up his first win of 2002. Jeff Green continues his white-hot start to the 2002 season as he scores the pole for Louisiana. Patty Moise started alongside him, but quickly Shauna Robinson jumped up to second. Green looked strong once again, but on lap 18, the first caution came out for Jeff Gordon when he suddenly lost power and came to a stop. Jeff Gordon would return to the race. The race restarted on lap 25, but we immediately had a problem as Dale Jr. ran into his teammate Tony Stewart, spinning the 15 as Dale Sr. watched in his rearview mirror. Mark Martin slammed into Tony Stewart with nowhere to go, collecting Matt Kenseth as many others swarmed to avoid it. We then went to restart on lap 31 as car number 31, Jeff Green, continued to lead. On lap 47, Tommy Kendall got loose coming off turn 2, causing Paige Jones to run into him. As Kendall was trying to get to pit road, he nearly took Green and Moroso out, but got into Ken Schrader, sending Schrader spinning into the pit road wall. He was able to keep the 49 going, and we went back to racing on lap 53 as Moroso was right behind Green. And right behind them was Kenny Brack. The Swede was looking very strong today. Moroso spent several laps trying to find a way past his teammate, and he finally did so on lap 108. Moroso took the lead, and Kenny Brack entered the fray, taking second from Green. Ken Schrader went for a spin on lap 115 to bring out the next caution of the race, and this led to Jeff Green losing several spots on pit road. Moroso and Brack led the field back to the green flag, and at the restart, Kenny Brack looked for an opening to take the lead, and he had it for a moment. However, lap traffic got in his way and caused him to lose some momentum and lose second to Sterling Marlin. With 56 to go, Marlin then took the lead from Rob Moroso. Despite a late caution with 14 to go, it would not faze Marlin at all, as Sterling Marlin goes on to earn his first win of 2002. Early on, Jeff Green held a 45-point lead over Rob Moroso. It was a beautiful spring afternoon in College Station, Texas, as Blaise Alexander and Rob Moroso led the field to the green flag. And right away, Blaise Alexander was looking strong, as he was leading a 4-car breakaway between him, Kyle Petty, Patty Moise, and Matt Kenseth. Then, a few laps later, Shauna Robinson, Dale Earnhardt, Jeff Green, and Jimmie Johnson entered the picture. There was 3 wide and even 4 wide racing at one point, as Dale Sr. was on the move. By lap 19, Kyle Petty took the lead, and Dale Earnhardt moved to second. Then a few laps later, Dale Earnhardt took the lead. Green flag pit stops then took place, and the caution would come out when there was a stack up in turn 3, causing Bill Elliott and Ernie Irvan to run into Mark Martin, and Joe Nemechek would also run into Irvan, but that would be it. The race restarted on lap 29 with Blaze Alexander leading, Dale Sr. in second, with Casey Elliott, Patty Moise, and Sterling Marlin in the top 5. Things were calm as Alexander was back out in front, but another teammate of his was charging through the field, that being Rusty Wallace. Rusty Wallace would then take the lead with 22 laps to go, and right after that, Wallace and Alexander head down pit road for a clean round of green flag pit stops. From that point on, it was all Rusty Wallace. He was far out in front, and Rusty Wallace would pick up his first win of 2002 at Texas World. There were a lot of storylines up front for Road America as Dale Earnhardt started on pole with Bill Elliott aside, looking to break his winless drought at the very track his nephew got his first win at a year ago. Earnhardt dominated the early stage of the race, but he had a bad break on pit road, losing the lead to Elliott on the second run, who was being chased down by Jeff Green and Jimmy Johnson. Elliott pulled ahead for a time before his own pit stop saw a change up front. Leapfrogging all the leaders on a short pit was, who else but Rusty Wallace, with Elliott taking second and Green and Kyle Petty having a thrilling battle for third. Wallace and Elliott pulled away and pit together on the final stop, with Rusty Wallace ahead once again. His teammate Sterling Marlin had a few laps on an alternative pit strategy, and while stopping later did help him steal a top 5, he couldn't steal the win. The Blue Deuce claims victory at Road America, and Rusty Wallace takes home the win. After a down year last year with only 1 points win, he's won twice in the first phase of the season. Is the 90s greatest driver back? 31 cars are lined up to try and make the run for $1 million, as Jimmy Johnson started on the pole for the Winston Open, but he was quickly overtaken by the 1999 champion Ernie Irvan. Irvan would end up driving away from the field, and he would go on to dominate and win the All-Star Open, and he will advance to the All-Star race. Rob Moroso and Shauna Robinson were on the front row to begin the 2002 Winston All-Star, as Moroso would lead for the first couple of laps, but he would quickly lose the lead to last year's winner, Rusty Wallace. Despite everything Moroso could do, Wallace looked very strong in the opening stage. He would lead them to the end of stage 1, where everyone would pit before taking on a longer stage. Shortly after the restart, the lead changed to Kyle Petty, who had been having a season from hell up to this point. His teammate Shauna Robinson jumped to second, with Paige Jones in the mix as well. It was Sapco 1-2 for most of stage 2, as most of the field would pit late. Then to begin stage 3, Paige Jones would have the lead with Matt Kenseth second and Kyle Petty in third, as we restarted with 12 laps to go. And immediately on the move was Kyle Petty. He wasted no time getting up to the front, as he would take the lead. Despite a horrific start to the season, a win like this could surely turn things around in the right direction for that 42 team, as Kyle Petty goes on to win the All-Star race for the first time in his career. Stock car racing's longest night has once again arrived, the Coca-Cola 600. Rob Moroso scored the pole with Jeff Green beside him as the 600-mile journey began. Moroso led for the first 6 laps, but coming to lap 7, Jeff Green powered on the outside to take the lead for a moment. Moroso, however, quickly fought back and drove away. Then on lap 13, Jeff Green came right back, this time on the inside, and took the lead with Shauna Robinson looking to follow suit. After that, Jeff Green dominated and led for the most laps. He just about looked unstoppable, but then on lap 85, as he and second place Jeff Gordon went to pit, the caution came out for debris. Everyone else went to pit, putting Green and Gordon back out in front, with Tim Steele leading the way. Steele did not pit and suddenly came down with a massive problem. He didn't get going right away and held up all of the leaders. With 40 laps to go, Jeff Green was still leading but had Rusty Wallace behind him. When many thought Wallace was going to catch fire, it was actually Rob Moroso, as he went past Wallace for second. After the final round of pit stops, the action heated up late into the night, and with 15 to go, it was Green, Moroso, and Paige Jones the top 3. Then with 12 to go, Moroso caught Green and would take the lead. Not only that, but Paige Jones was on the move, and he would take second as Green began to fade back. Jones was putting down faster laps as Moroso was held up by the lap car Tim Steele. With 8 laps to go, Moroso tried to get past Steele, but he fails. He loses a ton of momentum, and here comes Paige Jones. Paige Jones took the lead with 7 laps to go, but Rob Moroso came charging back, and he had help. Jimmie Johnson joined the mix, giving Moroso a push. But Jones was hanging tough as he and Moroso were side by side for the win. Then coming to 4 to go, Johnson gave Moroso the push he needed to get past Jones. Rob Moroso drove away to pick up the win in the Coca-Cola 600. This marks Moroso's second win of the season and his second Coke 600 win, with his first coming in 1996. Paige Jones finished second, with Jimmie Johnson third. Kelly Williams also earned a top 10, finishing in 10th. It's time to play the music and light the lights, because the Muppet Show paint schemes are in town for Chicago, as Patty Moise started on pole with her Ralph the Dog paint scheme and was the dominant car for much of the race, while Ernie Irvan looked to snap his cold spell in second. Moise had a large lead, but multiple others had good long-run cars battling for spots behind her. Matt Kenseth worked his way up to second later in the race, with Blaze Alexander and Jimmie Johnson behind. But where things got crazy was pit stops. Moise and Johnson kicked off a very late round of final pit stops with 5 laps to go, but then we had a caution that ended the race under yellow as Jeremy Mayfield broke down in turn 3, getting spun by Alan Kulwicki. Moise had the best car all day, but had to settle for 12th after a terrible break. A few cars ran out of fuel under yellow, but that was not an issue for Roger Penske's team. Matt Kenseth had stayed out before the yellow and led the field back around a few more times for his 3rd win of the season. While behind him, Blaze Alexander finished second, and Rusty Wallace third for a Penske 1-2-3. As previously mentioned, this race featured the Muppets cars that were painted across myself, Jets Racing Designs, and Rose Jam. The teams featured for the Muppets cars are the AK Racing cars of Alan Kulwicki and Ernie Irvan, the Evernham Motorsports cars of Ricky Rudd and Casey Elliott, the Sapco Pontiacs of Kyle Petty, Patty Moise, and Shauna Robinson, as well as the Kenny Wallace Celebrity Motorsports entry. A starting lineup full of storylines kicked off an instant classic at Pocono. It was an all-Earnhardt front row as Dale Earnhardt Jr. scored the pole with his father alongside in second. Dale Jr. was out to an early lead with a very competitive front pack of them with 2 young guns, Casey Elliott and Jimmie Johnson. Elliott took second away from the elder Earnhardt a few laps in, but Johnson bump-dragged his teammate and mentor to take the spot back. Father and son got side by side for the lead a few times, but over time, Dale Sr. slipped up a bit and Jimmie Johnson took his spot. After the first set of pit stops, Johnson had a lead on Dale Jr., who showed momentum early on. However, Dale Jr. faded back quick and surrendered second to Jeff Green, who later caught Jimmie Johnson to take the lead shortly after the halfway point. Where things got thrilling, however, was another pair of family members taking a unique strategy together. Casey Elliott and Uncle Bill both decided to make an extra stop on the 3rd run. Getting a lead on Green and Johnson, we had an Elliott 1-2 with Casey leading the way. They were hedging their bets on others running out of fuel on the final run early. Green and Johnson ran down the Elliots as their tires got older, and after their 3rd pit stops, Green just got a little distance on Johnson, until he ran out with 2 to go. Jeff Green had to pit, and Jimmie Johnson was all by himself in front, coming to the white flag. Jimmie Johnson earns his first career Winston Cup win at Pocono. Jeff Green finished 12th after his splash and go, while Casey and Bill's strategy helped them rebound enough for 13th and 14th, but not a top 10. What an incredibly memorable day at Pocono, and one where we could be seeing the birth of a NASCAR superstar. This race featured the Nike NBA Finals cars as Jeff Green represented the New Jersey Nets, and once again Patty Moise represented the LA Lakers. It was an action-packed day up in New Hampshire as Rob Moroso and Shauna Robinson led the field to the green flag. Moroso led the way early with Robinson behind him in second, but by lap 24, Jeff Green jumped from third to first in just the span of 2 laps, and it looked like he had a rocket. By lap 45, green flag pit stops took place, but we had trouble with the leader as Jeff Green ran into Mark Martin, who had just come off pit road, and they both end up wrecking. Green appeared to be okay despite losing the lead, as he would restart in 19th. Meanwhile, Shauna Robinson would lead the way. On lap 52, Patty Moise turned Terry Labonte coming off turn 2 in front of traffic, and Tim Steele ran into Moise. However, Dale Earnhardt Jr. had some incredible wreck avoidance as the wreck happened right in front of him but came out unscathed. Shauna Robinson remained the leader after the restart, and eventually Jeff Gordon found himself in second. Then on lap 63, Jeff Gordon chased down Shauna Robinson, and he got into a battle with the 40. Gordon would then take the lead, looking for his second win of the season. However, Jeff Green had a rocket. Jeff Green, after restarting 19th, made it to 5th and continued to climb. He worked his way past John Nemechek, then Rob Moroso, and then Blaze Alexander, and eventually by lap 74, Jeff Green caught Jeff Gordon and would work his way past the 1. But right as that happened, the caution would come out when Tim Steele ran into Chad Little going into turn 3, and they both go wrecking. Jeff Green restarted with the lead, but instead of him driving away, Jeff Gordon stayed with him. And by lap 85, Gordon and Green were battling for the lead. But Green was able to stick to the outside well and hang on. A few laps later, Gordon tried again, and they were putting on a show for the fans. Not only that, Gordon finally cleared Green for the lead. With 16 to go, 3 wide went very wrong as Ernie Irvan went up the track into Casey Elliott, who went up into John Andretti, who was also running 10th. Andretti slides up into the wall to bring out a late caution. Under 10 laps to go, Rob Moroso's car suddenly came to life as he zoomed past Green, and then with 6 to go, Moroso was to the inside of Gordon. Moroso and Gordon kept going side by side, back and forth, all the way to the final lap as Gordon hung tough on the outside, and even though Moroso looked fast, Jeff Gordon had enough to hang on, and he would pick up his second win of 2002 at New Hampshire. Our lone new track on the Winston Cup schedule. It opened last year with the lower series, and now it was time for the spotlight on the Winston Cup series. Rob Moroso earned his 3rd pole in 5 races, and early on it was a battle between Richard Childress Racing and Evernham Motorsports, with Casey and Bill Elliott together at the front once again, while Rob Moroso was being pushed along by Dale Earnhardt. Kenny Bragg also had a great start amid his surprisingly strong season, starting 4th and running 3rd early before falling behind the heavyweights. Bill Elliott peeked around Moroso a few times, but couldn't make a pass, and Moroso ultimately cleared to take the lead. Before first pit stops, we had a yellow. Kyle Petty's season from hell continues as he gets hooked by Paige Jones and goes up into his teammate Patty Moise and slams the wall. Moise would continue with damage, but Petty was done for the day. Moroso paced the field for a while, but pitting under Green changed the complexion of the race. Moroso had a slow stop on pit road, and Dale Earnhardt was the one to lead the pack that pit together, but not before Jeff Gordon and Sterling Marlin jumped him on the short pit. The longer run saw Gordon continue to lead, but he was run down by a new challenger, Shauna Robinson, who was wicked fast in the second half of the race. She would ultimately tear into Gordon's advantage, but while she took the lead, Gordon would leapfrog her again by short pitting final pit stops, in which the field was a bit close on fuel once again. Also, for Nashville and Daytona, Jeff Gordon drove a special McDonald's paint scheme with Island Vibes, promoting the Lilo and Stitch movie and Happy Meal. Robinson tried to run down Gordon, as well as Matt Kenseth, who joined her in cutting down his lead on the final run. Gordon got held up a bit by Patty Moise, trying to stay on the lead lap, which helped her teammate. But none of it mattered, because Jeff Gordon was short on fuel and had to pit with 5 laps to go. Many of the leaders were short. Who took the lead amid this chaos? It was Casey Elliott, who stopped a few laps later than the rest of the field. He and Dale Earnhardt were the only 2 drivers to stretch the previous run long, but they got exactly what the doctor ordered. He only led the last 2 laps of the race, but they were the most important ones, as Casey Elliott wins the inaugural Winston Cup race at Nashville Superspeedway. That's his first win of 2002 and the 3rd win for his career at Evernham Motorsports. Dale Earnhardt finished 2nd, and Adam Petty had a quietly great run and the right fuel strategy, coming home in 3rd. After Jeff Gordon picked up his 3rd win of the season at the Daytona Road Course, we reached the halfway point in the season. The championship battle has gotten very interesting, as Jeff Green had lost the points lead to Rusty Wallace. But Green is only back by 11, and now Jeff Gordon has entered the title picture back by 19 points. Moroso and Moise are there as well if they can get a major breakthrough. We then had a fun one in San Diego with many of the series' best winless drivers up front. Tony Stewart started on pole, but it was his boss man, Dale Earnhardt, pulling away with the lead from the outside. That was along with Ernie Irvan, who went winless last season. Earnhardt had the best car of the day and led much of the first half despite numerous attempts from Irvan and another driver who had long-run pace, Kyle Petty, trying to go for the lead. Those 3 would ultimately form the 5-car breakaway of contenders with Tony Stewart and Jeff Gordon. But towards the end of the race, Ernie Irvan took advantage by short pitting. 2 drivers with very disappointing seasons now ran 1-2, looking to end their winless droughts. And thanks to lap traffic, the Black 11 car pulled away. He had a remarkable 1999 championship run, then only got 1 win after that, which was the night race at Bristol in 2000. But after nearly a 2-year-long drought, Ernie Irvan returns to victory lane and does it in his home state. A much-needed win for him, and the first win on the year for AK Racing. Our second trip to Pocono had just as wild of a finish as the first, but let's talk about the run-up to it. Jeff Green started on pole with RCR taking up 3 of the top 4 spots, as Earnhardt and Johnson also started up front, as did Bill Elliott, who had a great run here a couple months ago. Elliott had the fastest car early and took the lead from Green, while Kyle Petty had a great start. It was the veterans up front early, as the pack consisted of Elliott, Green, and Petty battling for the lead, with Dale Sr. not far back either. Kyle Petty would eventually take the lead and dominate the day, following up his great run at SoCal. Petty took the lead and ran on his own and never looked back. The pit cycle saw Penske Racing get more momentum, with Blaze Alexander climbing to 2nd and Rusty Wallace behind him. Petty had a 4-second lead early, but Alexander caught him with 5 laps to go, until the lap car of Todd Bodine helped Petty pull away. Kyle Petty pulled ahead in turn 1 with a big lead amid his disastrous season, where things were finally going right as we reached the halfway point of the season. But Kyle Petty blew his engine with a lap and a half to go. Absolute shock, as Kyle Petty led all but 6 laps in this race and finished dead last. But also, even behind him, the Sutton battle for the win heated up, as Rusty Wallace clearly had the faster car than Alexander and cut into his new lead noticeably past the white flag. Wallace may have had a shot to win with another lap or 2, but instead, it's Blaze Alexander picking up his 2nd career win at the same track he got his first exactly a year ago. This was yet another fun, eventful Brickyard 400 with many storylines on hand. Matt Kenseth scored the pole with Jeff Green in 2nd, as Matt Kenseth led early on, looking strong. Could you imagine if he could win the Daytona 500 and Brickyard 400 in the same year? Blaze Alexander was able to get 2nd from Jeff Green, but by lap 16, we had green flag pit stops begin. 1 lap later, the caution came out when Jerry Nadeau, Bubba Nissen, and Adam Petty came off pit road 3 wide, and it did not end well as Nadeau made contact and lost control sliding up the track, also having Kenny Wallace slightly clip him, but both of them would keep going. Matt Kenseth remained the leader at the restart, but on the move all of a sudden was John Nemechek. By lap 22, Nemechek was on the move, and then just a couple of laps later, he took the lead from Kenseth. John Nemechek looked fast and was desperate for his first career Winston Cup win. With 25 to go, Nemechek still had the lead, but Jimmy Johnson began to reel him in. Just 3 laps later, Nemechek, Johnson, and other leaders went down pit road for green flag pit stops. However, Johnson had a faster stop and barely got ahead of Nemechek coming off pit road. With 21 to go, the caution came out when Casey Elliott made contact with Rusty Wallace coming off pit road, and Casey Elliott spun up the track. Tim Feudua had to evade and got into Terry Labonte as they both got loose and hit the wall. 3 drivers were on pit road when the caution came out, and because of that, Alan Kulwicki had the lead with Davey Allison second and Al Unser Jr. in the 33 in third. Johnson was fourth and Bill Elliott was fifth as we restarted with 15 laps to go. Johnson quickly got to the inside of Unser for third, and he was wasting no time. He tried to go for second and about made contact with Allison and had to lay back. Johnson was able to get around Allison not too long after as Kyle Petty was working his way through. With 9 laps to go, Jimmy Johnson went to the inside of Kulwicki, and the rookie would take the lead in the Brickyard 400. However, Kyle Petty was in hot pursuit. Then with 7 laps to go, Kyle Petty went to the inside and would take the lead from Johnson. Petty wanted to pull away, and he finally wanted this season of hell to be over. Johnson tried to reel him back in with 3 to go. Dale Sr. was there as well, but they used up everything they had, including their fuel. Johnson and Earnhardt had to pit coming to 2 to go, heading second to John Nemechek. 1 week after blowing his motor from the lead, Kyle Petty, on fumes, would win the Brickyard 400 for the second time in a row. All the headaches he's had this season, and he was able to make something out of it by becoming the first 2-time winner of the Brickyard. Matt Kenseth led a big pack of cars with 9 laps to go at Michigan, but would then lose the lead to John Andretti, looking to give Jarrett Favre their first win as a Cup team. Tony Stewart would then take the lead going 3 wide. The leaders then had to pit late with 5 to go, and Blaze Alexander then had the lead with Dale Jr. right behind him in second. Then they both pitted the next time around, but things got thrown out of a loop when Patty Moise spun Ricky Rudd coming off pit road to end the race under caution. This happened right as Alexander and Dale Jr. pit, and because Alexander crossed the line after the caution came out, Blaze Alexander had the lead, and he would go on to win at Michigan. The 2002 Southern 500 had quite a lot of big moments and could be indicative of where our title fight is heading. Jeff Green started on the pole, but all 3 Earnhardts started in the top 5 behind him. Dale Earnhardt was the one to pull around to second, while RCR led early. It was Casey Elliott who had more pace, making his way to the lead. But shortly before halfway, we had a big wreck that could bring big implications. Kyle Petty made a bit of contact with his son Adam, and that squeezed Moroso behind into the wall and spinning right in front of the pack. A dozen cars pile in, and some continue, but the most notably ones are Jeff Gordon, Patty Moise, Sterling Marlin, and Rob Moroso. With 3 of our top 6 in points out of the way, Green and Wallace had a chance to increase their lead. But it was Blaze Alexander, who was 6 in points, taking the lead after pit stops. Alexander would have the best car for the rest of the race and led the way, with Rusty Wallace having a chance at him, as well as the elder Elliott, Bill Elliott, who had jumped to second after final pit stops. Bill Elliott had a pair of chances at least in traffic, but never got to make a move. And Blaze Alexander goes on to win the Southern 500. Alexander has suddenly come to life and has now won 3 of the last 6 races. Does the sophomore have a chance to run for the title, especially with some of his competition wrecking out early? It's the Looney Tunes rematch, and we had one of the special paint schemes up front, with Dale Earnhardt starting on the pole in the Tasmanian Devil car and led in the early section until being passed by Rusty Wallace on the long run. Where things got wonky, however, was after we had a caution for Tim Steele and Tim Fudua, where we had a rare case of splitting fuel and tire strategy. Ricky Rudd took the lead and had great pace, while title favorites Jeff Green and Rusty Wallace were cutting back through the field. After another caution for Bubba Nissen, among others, as the final battle was between two drivers who stayed out at the first yellow, Ricky Rudd and Rob Moroso, with Moroso getting the upper hand and pulling well ahead with lap traffic in the end. Rudd ran out of fuel with 2 laps to go, handing the second to Jeff Green, but the bright blue Haviland Special paint scheme shines under the lights as Rob Moroso takes Bugs Bunny to victory lane, his 4th win of the year, as he rebounds from last week's crash. This race featured the Looney Tunes rematch, featuring cars such as Rob Moroso with Bugs Bunny, Dale Earnhardt with Taz the Tasmanian Devil, Davey Allison once again with Marvin the Martian, Kelly Earnhardt with Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner, Jimmy Johnson with Speedy Gonzalez, Tony Stewart with Sylvester and Tweety, Kenny Brack back again with Daffy Duck, Joe Nemechek with Yosemite Sam, and John Nemechek with Pepe Le Pew. These cars will be available for download in the description after the premiere. Here we are at the final 10 races of the season, and in this one, our title contenders took a bit of a back seat. With Bill Elliott starting on the pole in this one, it was a series of veterans leading early, as a crew of Bill Elliott, Dale Earnhardt, and Sterling Marlin paced the field. Dale Earnhardt found his way to the lead before long, with a youngster, Casey Elliott, climbing up the leaderboard and finding his way to second. After pit stops, Dale Earnhardt retained the lead, but a new challenger arrived on the short pit, Dale Earnhardt Jr. Father and son were running 1-2 once again this season, both looking for their first win of the year. Dale Jr. had a longer run car and ran down his father, making a pass for the lead, but Dale Sr. would take it back narrowly on pit road. As the race ran on, Dale Sr. stayed in front, with Dale Jr. losing long run pace. Dale Sr. maintained his lead in lap traffic, but would make a daring move to pit long late in the race, which led to something remarkable. As Dale Sr. went down pit road, we had a caution as Ken Schrader got spun by Paige Jones, and thanks to the timing of that caution, Dale Earnhardt had essentially lapped the field. Earnhardt was at the tail end of the line, but led the race, and all Dale Earnhardt had to do was to play it safe in the final 12 laps to finish, and he would win. Dale Earnhardt did not take it easy and worked his way up the pack to formally put cars a lap down. Dale Earnhardt has what may be one last show as the 51-year-old wins at Dover for his first win in a year and a half. And this is a moment I'm sure Dale Earnhardt is always going to cherish, because with every win, you never know when it'll be your last. On to our second ever trip to Kansas Speedway, and we had an unusual qualifying session. John Andretti gets the pole, with Kenny Brack starting in second. While Andretti led the first 2 laps, the race was dominated by the Fords, with Blaze Alexander taking the lead for a time until he was caught by Paige Jones. All the Penske cars had long-run speed, with Rusty Wallace and Matt Kenseth climbing through the field. Matt Kenseth pulled ahead with the lead before pit stops and jumped out to a massive lead after them, cruising easily to his 4th win of the season as Rusty Wallace finished second, but Jimmy Johnson passed his friend Blaze Alexander for 3rd in the final laps to break up the Penske 1-2-3. Rusty Wallace just sits 55 points from the lead heading into Talladega. Matt Kenseth is looking to enter the title fight as he started from the pole for some primetime racing at Lowe's Motor Speedway. However, as they came back around to complete the first lap, Shauna Robinson got into Tommy Kendall and into Jerry Nadeau, where Nadeau spun and Robinson got some damage. And that was only the beginning of what would be one hot night. While Kenseth led at the restart, Jimmy Johnson would take the lead shortly after. but that would only last for a handful of laps, as Rusty Wallace would take the lead on lap 12. By lap 40, and after the first round of pit stops, it was a 3-car battle between Wallace, Jeff Gordon, and Jimmy Johnson. Wallace took the lead for a bit, but then Johnson took the lead by lap 44. Johnson would lead until the next round of green flag pit stops around lap 65, when the caution would come out when Rodney Orr turned Mark Martin, causing Martin to spin and get tapped by Kenny Brack. Then Shauna Robinson got into Jeff Gordon as Gordon goes into the wall and he would get drilled by Terry Labonte. Johnson held the lead at the restart and would put both Green and Wallace a lap down. After the halfway point, Ricky Rudd would take the lead from Johnson, looking for his first win with Evernham. By lap 97, Bill Elliott had chased down Ricky Rudd, but then Jeff Green turned Robbie Gordon to bring out the caution. Then the 77 would get drilled by Kyle Petty, and then Kyle got drilled by his own son Adam, sending Kyle Petty flipping. Quite the pileup would take place that collected Rusty Wallace too. In the final 40 laps, it was the battle of Evernham teammates, 2 former champions in Ricky Rudd and Bill Elliott, 2 drivers looking to snap losing streaks. Late pit stops took place around 11 laps to go, and Bill Elliott jumped ahead of Rudd on pit road. Ricky Rudd did all he could to chase down Awesome Bill, but he wasn't able to get to him. And for the first time since the Bristol night race in 1996, Bill Elliott would return to victory lane at Lowe's Motor Speedway under the lights. While Wallace and Green had a rough going, Blaze Alexander would finish in 6th. Bubba Nissen scored the pole at one of his home tracks, as he's had a quiet year compared to 2001. We had an early caution when Tony Stewart and Chad Little made contact, collecting Dale Sr. and John Nemechek on the front stretch. After that, it was Rusty Wallace leading the way for quite a while. On lap 29, Jeff Gordon turned Robbie Gordon coming off turn 4 to bring out a caution. While Rusty Wallace led, Kelly Williams was having a strong day, running in second for a good portion of the race, but then close to 50 to go, Jeff Green, who had ran inside the top 5 for most of the race, had a couple of run-ins that led to him getting extensive repairs, finishing the race multiple laps down. Suddenly, Patty Moise found herself in the lead and had to hold off a charging Rusty Wallace. She hadn't won all year despite running very well, but that all finally changed, as Patty Moise earns a long-awaited first win of 2002, and Rusty Wallace would then take the points lead, having a 20-point lead over Jeff Green. Our final road course points race of the season gave us a clean race that blended heavyweights with underdogs. Patty Moise continued her momentum from last week with rookie Adam Petty in second. Petty nearly took the lead on the start in the S's, but had to back off, falling behind Rob Moroso. The 3 best cars of the day would be Moise, Moroso, and a different driver looking for their first win, John Nemechek, who had a great qualifying run and held fort on the start before getting around Adam Petty over time. Moise led for the first half in this one, but Moroso finally got a move on her and took Nemechek with him, sending Patty Moise to third before the 20 car pulled ahead. Rob Moroso is looking to be a serious contender as he ties his teammate with 5 wins on the year to close the gap to the leaders. Jeff Green closed his points gap on Rusty Wallace, but couldn't pass him, with Green finishing 10th and Rusty in 15th, giving Moroso a very valuable boost. As for Green, he only now sits 4 points back of Wallace with 3 races to go. We head back down to South Beach as Matt Kenseth scored the pole, with Jeff Green starting in second, but Kenseth looked fast early while Green dropped back to 8th place. Kenseth would lead past the first green flag pit stops, but by lap 38, he would lose the lead to Rusty Wallace, who was trying to get all the points that he could. Wallace looked strong, but by lap 62, and after another round of green flag pit stops, Jeff Gordon took over the lead, and with 11 to go, Tony Stewart chased down Jeff Gordon, and he took the lead. However, the leaders still needed to pit. Jeff Green was on track to take the lead, But the caution came out when Patty Moise and Joe Nemechek got together and wrecked into turn 3. 4 drivers in the back were the lead pack as Bill Elliott led with Alexander, Kyle Petty, and Sterling Marlin to the restart with 2 to go, and on the final lap, Kyle Petty worked his way past Elliott, who was swamped by lap cars, and Kyle Petty picks up the win at Homestead. Heading into Atlanta, Jeff Green holds a 32-point lead over Rusty Wallace. Will Jeff Green go back-to-back, or will Rusty win number 6? Here we go once again. The 2002 Napa 500, a race to determine a champion. For Rob Moroso, he would start second alongside pole sitter Tony Stewart, and while he is mathematically eligible, a lot would need to fall in his lap to finally earn his title. Behind them are other title contenders, Rusty Wallace trying to chase his 6th Winston Cup championship, and Jeff Green looking to become the first driver since Wallace to go back-to-back. Early on in this race, Rusty Wallace took the lead early by lap 3, scoring himself 5 bonus points. By lap 17, Rob Moroso had found his way to second and wanted the lead from Wallace, but he wasn't able to complete the pass. While Green was dropping back a bit, Wallace was looking strong early, trying to earn as many points as he could to win the championship. By lap 30, Rusty Wallace would head down pit road to begin the first round of green flag pit stops, as he would be the first one to make the move. Just 7 laps later, we had trouble as Bubba Nissen got into Mark Martin in turns 1 and 2, and Martin went up the track and hit the wall. It didn't stop there as Casey Elliott, Jerry Nadeau, John Nemechek, Tommy Kendall, and Terry Labonte were involved. Kendall ended up slamming into the 94, giving Elliott a bit of airtime. Some of the leaders went down pit road to top off, including Rusty Wallace, and on lap 43, he restarted in 13th, and Jeff Green restarted 26th. Blaze Alexander led the field back to the green flag with John Andretti in 2nd, and John Nemechek did not get going at all, and he was being freight trained, and with that, Jeff Green would get stuck behind him. Green had more work to do now, as he was still back in 26th. Meanwhile, Blaze Alexander was leading the way with Rob Moroso up to 2nd. Rusty Wallace was in 10th, and just a couple cars back of him was Tammy Jo Kirk in 12th, who was having a solid run for Gene Haas's team. By lap 55, things began to change for the number 2 as Rusty Wallace began losing spots and suddenly didn't look as fast as he did earlier. His car began plowing and began losing even more spots. It was becoming apparent that he needed an adjustment or his title hopes were going to be finished. By lap 77, everyone had to pit again and John Andretti was in contention for the win. But he loses what will be the lead to Rob Moroso. Andretti struggled despite showing flashes of good runs that never got the result he wanted. He hopes to build off that for a better 2003. While that was going on, Jeff Green was cruising in 8th, while Rusty Wallace was all the way back in 27th. With 30 laps to go, Blaze Alexander got into an intense side-by-side battle with Rob Moroso, and Alexander, who's had an amazing sophomore season, would take the lead. Perhaps a year from now, we'll be talking about him winning the title. Alexander essentially took the lead, and he would never look back. Blaze Alexander wins at Atlanta for his 4th win of 2002 and his 5th of his career. Jeff Green crosses the line in 9th, and Rusty Wallace finished 19th. And with that, Jeff Green captures the NASCAR Winston Cup Series Championship for 2002. Jeff Green, now a 2-time champion, becomes the first back-to-back champ since Rusty Wallace did it in 1994 and 1995. We still had one more race to go as our international exhibition takes NASCAR to España for the first time with a 23-car field including 3 European guests. Our field consists of the top 15 in Winston Cup points, plus our lone race winner outside of it, Ernie Irvan. Our top 3 drivers in the Busch Series will each make an appearance. Casey Kane will drive the number 99 for Bill Davis, Greg Biffle will drive the number 29 for Richard Childress, and Kevin Harvick will drive the Evernham Motorsports 19 for Dodge in place of Ricky Rudd. Scott Pruitt will also run another race in the Sapco 44. As for our guests, we begin with a familiar Frenchman. Veteran road racer Yannick Dalmas returns to Penske Racing for another guest appearance, driving the 03 Mobil 1 car. In addition, we have two Spaniards racing at home. Barcelona native Pedro de la Rosa will drive Ganassi's 85 car now that the F1 season is over. And lastly is a star in rally racing for Ford, Carlos Sainz Sr. He will be driving AK Racing's 7 car, making the trip alongside Ernie Irvan. A very diverse field is on hand as the Winston Cup crosses another continent off its list. And for the first time ever, the NASCAR Winston Cup Series is racing in Europe, as Rob Moroso and breakout star Matt Kenseth led the field to the green flag in front of an excited Spanish crowd. At the start, Rob Moroso was able to pull away as Jeff Gordon, Matt Kenseth, and Sterling Marlin went 3 wide for second. Marlin, however, was able to quickly clear the two to secure second early on. It turned into a pretty calm race as Rob Moroso was able to set things into cruise control with Sterling Marlin in second and Jeff Gordon third. Moroso ran the perfect race, having no problems as he would dominate the entire race and go on to take the checkered flag in Barcelona. Despite not winning the championship, Rob Moroso still had a fantastic season. As we take a look at our winners and our final standings from the 2002 NASCAR Winston Cup Series season. This was certainly the rise of the young guns with breakout seasons from Blaze Alexander, Matt Kenseth, and Jimmy Johnson. Kenseth and Johnson, who of course got their first career wins. As you see our standings, Jimmy Johnson finishing 9th in the standings, Casey Elliott having a career year finishing 10th, while there were plenty of down seasons for the likes of Shauna Robinson, Kyle Petty, Alan Kowicki, and DEI in general. And those folks are going to look to rebound in 2003 for sure. Last season, we talked about Jeff Green as a late bloomer who broke out. And this year, he showed that he's here to stay. It started with a hot 3 in a row, starting at Las Vegas, before he cooled off for a bit. Staying at the top of the standings with consistency, he had to fight a resurgent Rusty Wallace and late pushes from Patty Boies, Rob Moroso, and this season's breakouts, Blaze Alexander and Matt Kenseth. Green returned to victory lane at Bristol, a race where champions rise. Being the 4th consecutive year, the race has been won by the defending champion. A career-best 5th win at Gateway put him in championship position, a duel he claimed over Rusty Wallace, ironically to become the first back-to-back champion since Rusty himself in 1994 and 1995. At the end of the season, he spoke highly of his teammates and competitors alike. He said, quote, "Rusty is the gold standard in this generation of racers. There's no one more challenging to beat, and I thrive on being pushed to reach those heights. It's a spirit that Dale Earnhardt gave me, and even as he steps away from our team to focus on his own, we're always cheering for each other. He gave me my opportunity to even compete at this level. Dale taught me, and I'm ready to keep teaching those at RCR and beyond. I want to go for 3 in a row, but my teammates and the whole industry are ready to chase more championships. May the best one win." 2002 saw both the shining of the sport's current stars and the raising of its next generation. Jason Jarrett showed the Jarrett family name still has something in the tank, while Casey Kane's shocking championship season took him from little known to a top prospect for Bill Davis in the same way Jeff Gordon did a decade ago. But what will their futures look like as the Davis team continues to fall short of their targets? At the Winston Cup level, Jimmy Johnson earned a thrilling rookie win and quietly put up an all-time rookie season, while Blaze Alexander, Matt Kenseth, and Casey Elliott took steps forward to show they can lead NASCAR's new era. At the same time, some of the sport's best still hold the crown. Our past 2 Winston Cup champions, Jeff Green and Rusty Wallace, dueled for the championship. In the end, it was Jeff Green taking home a second championship as Richard Childress Racing looks to assert itself as the best team in the sport. Green was a driver found by Dale Earnhardt, the original driver for Dale Earnhardt Incorporated in the Busch Series, well before they expanded to the Winston Cup. Even after a disappointing 2002 season, Earnhardt looks to be a team owner to watch for the future, and perhaps his own starts there will breathe new life into it. 51 years old, 3 championships, and 57 wins, the majority of which came for Richard Childress Racing, a team that grew alongside Dale to include Neil Bonnet, Rob Moroso, Jeff Green, and now young Jimmy Johnson. After one last shining moment in the number 3, Dale Earnhardt bows out of his full-time career. And what a legacy he left. The chapter he got to end on his own terms with the honor he earned. Yet at the same time, he enters a new chapter. One we could have seen in real life if not for 2001, a timeline where Dale's leadership takes on new meaning in an era of ownership. A timeline where he continues racing in NASCAR and beyond, representing American oval racing to new audiences as the icon he was meant to be. Yet he continues to build the future of the sport from the ground up, both within the family and with drivers other owners would overlook. An ambassador for every aspect that fuels the sport, a star motorsports athlete, an emerging team owner, a man indicative of the effort and attitude that got the sport to this point, and a true ambassador for how to take it to new generations, new audiences, and make NASCAR more than what it used to be. Dale Earnhardt is a cultural icon of Southern grit, a representation of the sport's roots at a time where it grew from an emerging Southern series to a national spectacle. His story was carved in an ordinary town called Kannapolis, yet he became known across the country and around the globe. There's a bit of Earnhardt in all of us, our call to be bold, authentic, competitive, and rise from humble beginnings to a life with purpose. Dale did it all. He was a family man in North Carolina, a celebrity representing NASCAR in the big city, an advocate for drivers from the South, North, and West alike, and even a man who saw potential in a foreign road racer to excel in the Winston Cup. Dale Earnhardt represents not just the sport's past, but also its present and future, even when he didn't get to see it. NASCAR's greatest villain is more than a hero. Dale Earnhardt is its greatest legend, because heroes get remembered, but legends never die. From 2001 to today, Dale's spirit is alive, even as the sport and the world changes, just like every driver who's contributed to our sport's history. Even when his life was cut short while he had more to give, Dale's presence propelled NASCAR to something bigger. That is the true reason that for a quarter of a century, Dale Earnhardt has inspired us to rewrite racing history. But we say it again, the story is never truly over.
I mean, you know, we've not had a good year. And, you know, we're in the top 5 in points, and that's good. That's a competitive place to be, but we want to win some races. We still got 4 races to go, and we can win some races, and that might make the season look a little better, to end up on a winning note is what we like.
69th victory in this series, your 5th right here. Why do these moments never get old, Kyle?
Because you never know when the last one is, you know.
Since the last episode of Sunday Night Lights, NASCAR has been through a lot. Many would say its darkest period since 2001. But the sport has moved forward, no matter how hard it may be, because the joy of racing at its best is something everyone we've lost would want to see continue. Just like we saw in the 2000s, good times are always on their way. And those good times are shaped by everyone who's played a role in NASCAR, big and small. That's what Sunday Night Lights has become over the past 6 years, and will embrace even more going forward. A celebration of racing at its best, and a way to show that even as the story changes, there's always something to be loved. Racing is worth celebrating and sharing, and we need people now more than ever who want to celebrate NASCAR, both for what it was, what it is, and what it can be. Evolution is inevitable, so we need to celebrate it. People like Dale did, after all. Our mission continues as a team, and we thank you for your patience waiting for this video and your enthusiasm for the series. Thank you to Jets Racing Designs for all his work creating cars, plus the blender components and some of the real footage used in this video. Thank you to Rose Jam for their work on paint schemes and with updating team ratings, and Ferris for his work updating our driver rating algorithm. We'll be posting all the new paint schemes for download soon, from the new primary paint schemes to the Looney Tunes and Muppets collections. As always, we can't wait to see what you do with them. And much as we've said about the drivers in our sport, our story isn't over. Please like the video and subscribe to see more. The wait for 2003 should not be as long as this one. We're building a story that shows why we love racing and its people, and why we want everyone to do the same. Both told through fiction and the real story of those pushing racing forward. Last season, our core theme was heroes, and how any driver can be a hero. But some rise to become legends who never die. The drivers who achieved more in this sport than anyone else. Those who will be more than remembered, but beloved. Even NASCAR's greatest villains are part of that category. So the question remains, who will become legendary in the timeline of Sunday Night Lights? The only way to find out is to move forward. And let's do it as a family.